I start by building Chase. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401. That's it. Although the Federation's spacecraft is not as good as the other party's spacecraft, the Federation is not completely useless. At least the Federation's mecha is very strong. In this case, let's strike while the iron is hot. Omar said modestly. This is the technical core of our Federation. Although this mecha is very perfect, it still has some defects. I believe you can see it. Lin Chen and others nodded and said in agreement. Yes, there are indeed some defects. It should not be just some defects, but full of slots from top to bottom, full of defects. Omar smiled and said, since you have seen it, why not tell us what the shortcomings are, so that we can improve it? The unbridled smile on his face could no longer be stopped, because the Federation's mecha can be said to be almost perfect. Even if the other party picks it later, it is nothing more than picking bones in an egg. Lin Chen said, then we can say it. The supreme leader of the Federation, Omar, said confidently, you can say it. Several people originally wanted to save face for Omar, so that she would not make a fool of herself in front of the live broadcast, but seeing her indifferent look, she seemed not afraid of losing face at all, with a confident look. Lin Chen and others were secretly shocked. Such an open-minded mind is rare. Such a person is worthy of being the supreme leader of the Federation, because people who can humbly accept their own shortcomings and change are absolutely rare in the world. Well, in this case, let's talk about the Federation's mecha. No, it should be said that it is the defects of the robot. Lin Chen said, your mecha is too inflexible. Once a battle occurs, it is almost a live target. General Bit said, it seems that your mecha can't fly, right? Commander Ryan said, the performance of your mecha is too poor. After a series of comments, the mecha that the Federation is proud of is almost worthless, and there is no advantage at all. Omar. ? It is already perfect to make such a large mecha like this. Inflexible. Can't fly. Poor performance. What the hell? I thought the other party would say something to find fault with it, but I never expected that they would pick on these issues right from the start. Not to mention Omar, even if you look at the scientists of the entire Federation, it is absolutely impossible to achieve the perfection that the other party said. At this moment, after Lin Chen and others finished speaking, Omar, the supreme leader of the Federation, and even the audience watching the live broadcast of the entire Federation stopped smiling. The Federation's perfect mecha was actually said to be worthless by the other party? So angry. The face was immediately embarrassed. The audience watching the live broadcast turned into keyboard warriors criticizing evil, and they all told about all kinds of injustices in the world. Rubbish, the people of Azure Star are all rubbish. Haha, maybe it's because they don't understand what a mecha is, so they're so picky. Our mecha is the strongest, and those humans from Azure Star are clearly deliberately making us look bad. People were extremely angry. In fact, it was not that Lin Chen and others deliberately made the Federation of this world lose face. It was the supreme leader of the Federation, Omar, who pointed out the shortcomings. Since he had said so, of course the Federation's Mechas should be compared with the perspective of the Azure Star. At this moment, Omar and other high-level officials were suddenly embarrassed. They thought that the Mechas would be used to demonstrate their strength and make these humans from the Azure Star no longer underestimate the Federation, but the Mechas were actually devalued. ? Lin Chen and the others were confused. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became awkward, but at this moment, not far away, the staff of both sides were still distributing the Kyber crystals. After a while, with the efforts of a large number of Federation staff, all the Kyber crystals were finally dragged out of the Starship Troop's spaceship. The Kyber crystals were piled together, and a total of 12,000 cubic meters were counted. This huge number is all the Kyber crystals of the entire No.1 insect star. Even if the Federation only has 2% of the ownership, it will still be allocated a lot of this super energy substance. As the distribution progressed, hundreds of forklifts continued to work, loading Kyber crystals onto the large spacecrafts of the three fleets. But soon, staff from each fleet came to Lin Chen and others with progress data, and promptly resolved the awkward atmosphere on the scene. Lin Chen asked, what is this? A staff member with the Wangxin Third Union on his chest said, the Federation calculates the Kyber crystals by cubic meters of boxes. Our fleet is allocated 3,920 boxes, but there may not be enough space inside our fleet. In his hand was a data sheet. Lin Chen glanced at it hurriedly. Judging from the volume, it seemed that so many things could not be taken away all at once. Then, he clicked on his watch, and the screen of the watch lit up immediately, and an inverted triangle of red light gradually formed the figure of the Red Queen. How much space is left in the fleet's cargo hold at present? In addition to the supply of living materials that can support 2 years, the remaining cargo hold space is about 2,000 square meters. Since it can't be loaded, then you notify the combat units in the spacecraft to come out and take the Kyber crystals back first. Okay. Lin Chen and the Red Queen finished their conversation, but the surroundings were quiet. Many people were dazed, thinking about the artificial intelligence that had just appeared. It was a very powerful artificial intelligence, and it could even be said to be a loyal butler. Lin Chen said, "It's just artificial intelligence." General Bit frowned, as if he had thought of something. No wonder the Red Queen, the artificial intelligence of the Umbrella Company, was never found on the planet of the Resident Evil. It turned out that it was obtained by the Wangxin Empire. Later, because of the volume of the Kyber crystal, the Jianmeng fleet and the Sun Never Sets United fleet also adopted the same approach as Lin Chen. They would take the Kyber crystal back to the Azure Star first. However, this also needs the consent of the Federation. Lin Chen turned to look at Omar, the supreme leader of the Federation, and asked, "You just heard that our spaceship has limited space inside, so we will let the combat units in the spaceship come out and stay in the Federation for a while." Omar said, "Okay, but I also want the army to come, and I hope you can understand." In fact, the senior officials of the Federation she represented were worried that the other party would suddenly attack, and they were also curious about what the combat units of the Azure Star would be like. That's natural. Lin Chen and others nodded. The other side sent troops here to deal with the possible war. After the two sides reached an agreement, Omar immediately ordered the photographer to broadcast the next thing live, so that the citizens can see that since the other side has devalued the Federation's mecha, what will their combat units be? Soon, not long after Lin Chen, the descendant of the Red Fleet, issued an order to the fleet, a neat sound of footsteps came from the two battleships in the Wangxin fleet. Clang clang clang, the sound came before the people appeared. The Marine Corps is definitely the most powerful ground force on the Azure Star so far. They may not be the king of soldiers, but each of them must have a strong psychological quality, and each of them has experienced hundreds of battles and has experienced the baptism of blood and fire. When these people are wearing power combat suits and holding C-14 electromagnetic spikes, they can be called a mobile human tank. The reason why they're still wearing power combat suits is that it is the first time to contact the Federation of this world, and everyone is on guard. Hearing the sound from the spaceship, the senior officials of the Federation looked at the open hatch of the battleship, and even the live broadcast camera was aimed at the open hatch, as if waiting for the infantry inside to come out. Omar asked in confusion, "Infantry? I thought the other side was so strong, but it turns out it's still infantry. How dare they belittle the Federation's Mechas?" When the audience who were watching the live broadcast heard Omar's doubts, they immediately smiled. At this moment, almost everyone in the Federation couldn't wait to see the military strength of Azure Star. It was so loud and grand before, and it would be interesting if it failed. Chapter 402. Invisible pretense is the most deadly. Lin Chen replied, "It's literally right, but I prefer to call them Marines." Many high-ranking officials of the Federation curled their lips. Translated, "Isn't it still infantry, just like the mobile infantry regiment of the Starship Troopers?" The sound of clang 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 became clearer and clearer. Then, the Marines came out, marching in neat and uniform movements. Rows of almost identical humanoid armors walked out of the two battleships. Every step they took was accompanied by a monstrous momentum, as if the world was about to be eclipsed. Immediately, all the people in the Federation who were ready to watch the show are dumbfounded. The smiles on the faces of the audience watching the live broadcast froze, revealing obvious horror. Many high-ranking officials of the Federation stood there in shock. And the Supreme Leader Omar, the middle-aged woman, stood in the wind in a mess. Is this infantry? This is a real iron division, okay. Oh, my heart hurts. It turns out that only unintentional pretense is the most perfect pretense. At this moment, a steady stream of Marines was still walking outside. If the Federation's previous display of 9-meter high chase had excited countless people, then the moment this line of Marines appeared, countless citizens of the Federation who were watching the live broadcast were immediately horrified. So strong. These Marines wearing mechanical combat uniforms have something that the Mechas they are proud of do not have. That is a kind of momentum. An invincible, sweeping momentum that seems to compete with the sky. The humanoid armor of the Marines can also be regarded as a kind of armor, but it is not heavy. It adheres to the concept and style of the Wangxin Empire. It is flexible and light. It can be seen that the behavior of these Marines is not effortful. The sealed armor exudes bursts of cold light under the illumination of the eyes. The identity is even more, not as slender as imagined, but has an inverted triangle body shape of a bodybuilder. On the back of the combat uniform is a penetrating electromagnetic nail gun, and in the middle of the back is a nuclear power turbine that emits a faint blue light. The three-layer turbine field rotates slowly, and the nuclear fusion reactor in the center provides a strong energy supply. Bang bang bang, soon, all 4,000 Marines walked out of the spacecraft. They stood upright, standing at attention on one side of the spacecraft, waiting for the next order. Yes, countless people in the Federation took a breath, all intimidated by the opponent's momentum. At this moment, many senior officials of the Federation looked extremely embarrassed. Is this the Marine Corps? After contrast and comparison, many senior officials of the Federation looked hot, because no matter how they looked at it before, they felt that the Federation's Mechas were full of perfection, but now it seems that the 7 Mechas of the Federation are so eye-catching. Even if the other Marines are not Mechas, they are better than Mechas. At this time, the super soldiers of the Jianmeng fleet also came out. Because the manufacturing process of the exoskeleton armor is not very complicated, it is better than the Marine Corps power combat suit in terms of mass production. They have about 10,000 super soldiers who come out of the spacecraft continuously, and they see that the faces of many senior officials of the Federation have changed. In their hearts, they can't help but re-evaluate the civilization level of the Azure Star, and feel that the other party is a group of powerful interstellar forces. However, the senior officials of the Federation still have a final stubbornness. That is, the Federation has Mechas, while the Azure Star does not. This alone is definitely enough to brag about, at least it will not let the humans of the Azure Star underestimate the Federation. Because the technology of Mechas involves many fields, no matter how strong the Azure Star is, it does not have Mechas, while the Federation does. So this is something worth bragging about. It was at this time that Omar and others all breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally over. Although the pretense today was not perfect, it at least had some effect. At this moment, the audience of the Federation who were watching the live broadcast no longer made loud noises and sneered at the Azure Star, because the Azure Star showed strong strength and perfect equipment technology. It seems reasonable for a high-level human planet to be picky about a low-level human planet. After all, they are judged according to the standards of their own planet. But they don't know that this is just an appetizer. At this time, after waiting for all the super soldiers of the Jianmeng fleet to come out, many high-level officials of the Federation breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally over. It was originally an opportunity for the Federation to show its strength, but suddenly it became the opportunity for the Blue Star to show its strength, overshadowing the style that originally belonged to the Federation. The Supreme Leader of the Federation, Omar, said, "It's over, I will try my best to have your soldiers settled." Lin Chen said, "Wait a little longer, there are more later, I hope you don't mind." "Of course I don't mind." The Supreme Leader of the Federation, Omar, still had a smile on his face, and there was no change in his expression. In fact, he was thinking in his heart. It's endless, isn't it? The Federation is just pretending to be cool. In order to achieve a good effect, it deliberately adopted the method of live broadcasting today, just to show its strength, but do you have to do this? Too much. Soon after he finished speaking, the large spaceships of the Jianmeng fleet and the Sun Never Sets United fleet took off and began to prepare to deploy Mechas. The Wangxin fleet did not need to be so troublesome, and the battleships were still quietly parked on the ground. Omar of the Federation asked, "Why did it fly up?" No one answered her doubts, but soon all the senior officials of the Federation and the audience watching TV had their pupils shrink. They saw several giant spaceships launching metal giants comparable to hills. They weren't Mechas. Under such huge Mechas, anyone would feel very small. At this moment, the entire Federation was in a state of extreme shock. It turned out to be a mecha too. What a great mecha. This is a real mecha, it looks great. Are the people of the Federation pigs? They actually have to show their strength in front of the other party. Now, it's the other party who shows their strength. Shocked. The audience swallowed their saliva, and their eyes were focused on those Mechas comparable to hills. So cool, the Mechas of Azure Star satisfy your men's excitement points, while the rubbish Mechas of the Federation are simply incomparable. If a fight really breaks out, the opponent will definitely smash the Federation's Mechas with one punch. A large number of Mechas began to fly out of the Wangxin fleet. One mecha after another flew over this area for a while, looking extremely heroic. After a while, they found an open space and landed and transformed. Omar exclaimed, "Fuck, it's a mecha that can transform." The entire Federation was collectively speechless. Invisible pretense is the most deadly. I never expected that the foolproof and wonderful idea would fail. The senior officials of the Federation felt their faces burning, and they didn't even dare to look at the humans of Azure Star, and they were all ashamed. It turns out that the clown has always been the Federation. Looking at the opponent's Mechas, they were all very cool and awesome. Then looking at the Mechas that the Federation had always been proud of, they were no longer attractive. Not only were they eye-catching, but they were also a disgrace to the word Mecha. Garbage. The Federation's 7 Mechas were 7 pieces of garbage, 7 pieces of ugly and broken copper and iron. Chapter 403. The second rape. Later, the cultural exchange was finally concluded as they wished, but the faces of many senior officials of the Federation were very ugly. What a wonderful idea! They had to show their strength in front of the humans of Azure Star, so that the humans of Azure Star would not underestimate the Federation. Now, things are going in a completely different direction. The good show of strength has become Azure Star showing its strength, and what's more terrible is that they are still passively showing their strength. Whoosh, this is definitely the most typical whoosh idea, nothing else. The highest leader of the Federation, Omar, is a middle-aged woman over 50 years old. At this moment, her face is flushed with embarrassment. She almost said with a stiff upper lip, "It seems that our Federation still has a long way to go in the future. I really don't know what to say. Should I say that your mecha is so strong and powerful? That's too nonsense, isn't it, hitting yourself in the face?" Lin Chen was not in the mood to say these things, and said, "I'll trouble the Federation in the future." "You're welcome." Everyone nodded and left. The leader of the Federation shouted angrily, "What are you still standing there for? Why don't you move on, chase away quickly? Aren't you ashamed?" The next day, after the Kyber crystals were shipped, many fleets set out on their return journey. This was a real full-loaded journey. Just after Wangxin and other fleets left and disappeared into the sky, the Federation quickly held a very important meeting. Many senior members of the Federation were present in the meeting room, and an urgent atmosphere permeated the air. Although Azure Star showed a friendly attitude, no one forgot the fact that the other party almost beat the Starship troops into space garbage for the sake of Kyber crystals. Fortunately, Star Marshal Vaz did not continue to be stubborn at the time, and showed his cowardly side at the most appropriate time. At the meeting, the Supreme Leader Omar first said, "In view of the fact that the Star Marshal did not cause the destruction of the Starship troopers, his position will not be removed this time, but Star Marshal Vaz must come to destroy the Iraq bugs to make up for the crime of giving out Kyber crystals to others." Star Marshal Vaz was stunned for a moment, and then gladly accepted the order. Omar added, "We the Federation must not sit and wait for death. We must occupy an entire insect star and plunder the Kyber crystals as quickly as possible, otherwise those people will definitely intervene by force when they come back." With this, everyone in the meeting agreed. "Yes, those Kyber crystals make me excited. We must take action while the people from the Azure Star have not returned. We must use tough measures when those people come back." The top leaders surprisingly agreed that attacking the remaining 4 insect stars was the wisest choice. Only with more resources can the Federation become stronger. Omar stretched out her hand to signal the meeting room to be quiet, and the scene immediately quieted down. She turned her head and asked the Interstellar Marshal sitting at the end, "Marshal Gas, do you have any good ideas?" Interstellar Marshal Gas said confidently, "Yes, to deal with those bugs, we must first understand those bugs. This time we have caught the brainworms. As long as we conduct sufficient research on the brainworms, we can understand the weaknesses of those worms." Everyone smiled happily. "That's great, knowing yourself and the enemy will ensure victory in 100 battles." Interstellar Marshal Gas said, "Through research, our scientists have discovered that the brainworm is the leader of the bugs on the planet. The entire swarm seems to be managed by one brainworm. In addition, our scientists are terrified that there is evidence that there is a supernatural long-distance sensing phenomenon between brainworms." Omar said, "Very good, Marshal Gas, you have done a great job. The affairs of the bug planet will be left to you to handle." A meeting ended in a hurry. These high-ranking officials also performed their duties again, but Marshal Gas of the Star Era had a task, which was to increase the research on the brainworms and find the weaknesses of the Arachi worms as soon as possible, or the little-known side. Later, the Federation conducted research on the captured brainworms and finally found a way to deal with the Arachi worms as they wished. They could make them lose their combat effectiveness by hitting the nerves of these worms as much as possible. However, no one knew that during this period, the brainworms behaved too strangely. It was as if they were captured on purpose. On this day, Marshal Gas of the Star Era and his assistant came to the laboratory, but soon, some bad voices appeared in Gas's head. It was the voice of the brainworm. It established a special connection with Gas through some kind of telepathy. The brainworm sent a telepathic signal to Marshal Gas of the Star Era. "We are looking for a way to coexist with humans." "What the hell?" Marshal Gas of the Star Era said to himself, thinking that he might have been under too much pressure recently. It was just a dream to coexist with the worms. He lit a cigarette happily and turned around and left the laboratory. Brainworm. Oh, could it be that the human just now was a mental retard? However, Vass left, but his assistant Daniel stayed in the laboratory. His eyes met the 8 eyes of the brainworm for a while, and his expression changed slightly. In the telepathic communication, the brainworm fully explained the power of the Arachis, and the existence of the worm god, which was a miracle in the universe. It can be said that the worm god is a part of the entire planet. It is such a miraculous existence that claims to coexist with humans. Then after a series of communications, just like hypnosis, the assistant Daniel was used by the brainworm to rebel, or to use special means. Telepathy made him have faith in the Arachis, and regard a great worm god as god. Daniel regained his previous expression and said to the researchers around him, "You go out first." After all, he is the assistant of the Interstellar Marshal, a real power figure. Although the researchers don't understand why he asked everyone to go out first, they still went out according to the other party's orders. After everyone left, the assistant of the Star Marshal, Daniel, immediately showed a kind of religious piety. He lay on the body of the brainworm and stroked the smooth skin of the brainworm with his hands. This is a spiritual contract, this is communication. Assistant Daniel closed his eyes and said devoutly, "I understand that the insect god is God, I will be its servant." Another exchange, Daniel's face was tightly pressed against the smooth skin of the brainworm, and he said excitedly, "Yes, I will use my power to make the Starship troops lose the battle to prove my faith, and then we can discuss the conditions of peace." Daniel was very excited at this moment. Because he was communicating with God and was about to become God's servant, so looking at the whole world, the whole universe, probably only he could be lucky enough to have this honor. But Daniel didn't know that everything that happened at this moment, including his abnormal behavior, had been captured by the surveillance camera, including his conversation with the brainworm. Later, when the Star Marshal Vaz was drawing up a battle plan, the assistant Daniel became very active. In order to submit a letter of surrender to the insect god, he had to try his best to destroy the Starship troopers. This is a conspiracy. A conspiracy launched by the bugs against humans. Daniel suggested, "Marshal, I think we can build a base on Bug Planet No. 5. Build a base on Bug Planet." Daniel said, "Yes, use the electromagnetic protective wall to block the war bugs, and we can use the base as the center to find the nest of the Arachi bugs." Interstellar Marshal Gas nodded, quite agreeing with this tactic. Anyway, as long as the electromagnetic protective wall is built, the bugs will not be able to get in. It is impossible that someone will deliberately open the electromagnetic protective wall to let the bugs in. This is a great idea. Interstellar Marshal Gas immediately agreed to the plan and prepared to do a big job next. As time passed, Lin Chen, who had traveled through the vast starry sky, also returned to the Blue Star. After unloading the cargo, he immediately prepared to return to the Bug Galaxy. Lin Chen said, "Let's go." The fleet set sail again, obviously not wanting to let go of the Kyber crystals on every planet in the Bug Galaxy. This is the chapter for tomorrow morning. I feel a little uncomfortable today, so I don't write much. Chapter 404 Heavy Damage. Unlike the last time, this time there were more spaceships and more fleets. Many forces have tasted the sweetness and dispatched all spaceships without worries. The Polar Fleet is no longer low-key. While fighting with General Bit of the Jianmeng Empire, it joined the fleet. Among these fleets, the Wangxin Fleet and the Jianmeng Fleet are obviously larger. After all, both sides have shipyards as support, which allows the fleet to increase the speed of spaceships. Almost every 10 days or half a month, a medium-sized and large warship will be put into service. In addition to the shipyard, the Wang's Empire also has a planet, Xinhuaxing, which has a 50% bonus for manufacturing spaceships. From time to time, Xinhuaxing will deliver a batch of spaceships. It is precisely because of this that the Empire's third joint fleet is about to be fully staffed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One by one, the warships passed through the thick clouds, cut through the sky, and joined the fleet in the sky. Lin Chen stood by the window and smiled. It's developing very fast. The Azure Star is already evolving into an advanced civilization. This process is undoubtedly rapid. The world is generally developing the aviation field with gravity. Maybe the current Azure Star is developing slowly in the field of people's livelihood, but it is definitely in a leading position in aviation, because only with more resources can the development of people's livelihood be simple. After a while, densely packed spaceships covered the sky, and countless people on Azure Star looked up. You can see that there are spaceships flying everywhere in the sky, and there are constantly more spaceships joining, and finally reaching a scale of about 500 spaceships getting on and off, and then they successively sailed out of Azure Star and headed for the Bug Star in the depths of the starry sky. Just as the spaceships of Azure Star were shuttling through the vast starry sky again, no one knew that a major event had occurred between the Federation and the Bug Star system, a major event that shocked the Federation. Because the Federation officially declared war on the Bug Star system. Our war has only one goal: to eliminate the bugs and ensure the complete victory of mankind. As soon as the news came out, the Federation was full of cheers. During this period, all the people in the Starship troops set off for the Bug Star No. 5 with high morale, ready to do something big. However, they didn't know that this was a conspiracy planned by Daniel, the assistant of the Star Marshal, to destroy the Starship troops in order to meet the conditions for peace talks. Soon, the Galaxy troops arrived at the No. 5 insect planet after traveling through the vast star field. This planet is a habitable planet like the No. 1 insect planet, but there is a world of difference, because the No. 1 insect planet is full of desolation and only insects, but the No. 5 insect planet has sea and vegetation. This is more like a good place for leisure and vacation. This time, the Galaxy troops were obviously well prepared. When the densely packed warships entered the orbit of the No. 5 insect planet, in order to avoid being attacked by plasma insects again, they first used the superior artillery fire to cover a radius of thousands of kilometers. Then, the combat units of the Mobile Infantry Regiment were sent to the ground, and a total of 200,000 Mobile Infantry Regiments were sent. These Mobile Infantry Regiments had just landed on the insect planet, and the first priority was to build a defensive position, using the electromagnetic protection wall as a safe stronghold in the natural moat. And all this was to seize an entire planet and obtain the Kyber crystals before the humans on the Azure Star came back. Things went very smoothly, even to the point of being unbelievable. The bugs seemed to be weak and began to be chased and beaten by the soldiers. This made the Star Marshal suspicious. The bugs were intelligent, which had been confirmed. In order to avoid falling into the trap of the bugs, he recalled all the soldiers to return to the base. Even if the bugs launched a counterattack, they would not be able to cross the electromagnetic protection net. After sending the message, the Star Marshal frowned and looked at his assistant and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Recently, this guy seemed to have changed. He was always talking nonsense. God is great. Assistant Daniel smiled, because tonight he would use his power to shut down the electromagnetic protection net, and then God would send down a miracle to destroy the entire Starship troopers. Star Marshal. Question mark, question mark, question mark. The only answer he got was the back of his assistant. It was soon late at night. In the defense base, even though many soldiers were already asleep, they were still on guard, because they were in a dangerous bug star. The assistant of the Star Marshal Gas, Daniel, slipped out and used his power to went to the control room of the base. He used the trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain to quickly shut down the electromagnetic protection network of the entire defense base. The conspiracy went smoothly. Assistant Daniel said devoutly, "Great Lord, I said that I would destroy the Starship troops to prove my willingness to be your servant." It seemed that his prayer turned into an invisible radio wave signal. After a while, insects appeared all over the mountains and immediately rushed into the defense base that the Star Marshal had worked hard to build. A bloody storm began to unfold. Originally, the reason why humans could beat the Arachi insects was just because of the weapons in their hands, but at this moment the situation was reversed. Endless Arachi insects rushed into the defensive base at night without any precautions from humans, almost causing a dam breach that could not be made up. Relying on flesh and blood, it is certainly impossible to fight the Arachi insects. Even if there are weapons in hand, it is easy for these big insects to suddenly ride on your face without a certain safety distance. The so-called steel fortress of the Star Marshal has overturned. As the alarm rang throughout the defense's stronghold, many soldiers woke up from their sleep, and were torn into 8 pieces by the war bugs of Arachi before they even had time to pick up their weapons. Ah, my body is gone. Help, help. Retreat, retreat quickly, there are bugs everywhere, blocking the way, retreat to the landing ship and take off. The 200,000 mobile infantry regiments were defeated. After the electromagnetic protection wall lost its function, the endless stream of bugs could not be killed. As the war became worse and worse, the front-line camp almost became a no man's land, completely becoming Arachi's paradise. Soldiers continued to flee from the front and were constantly chased by the Arachi bug army. At this moment, Interstellar Marshal Gas also woke up, hurriedly put on his clothes, and said to himself, "What's going on? Where is the electromagnetic protection wall?" A signalman reported in time. The electromagnetic protection wall is suspected to have been closed manually. Interstellar Marshal said, "Notify your mobile infantry to retreat in the direction of the landing ship. We will leave the bug planet first." The order was issued, and the living people in the defense's stronghold rushed to the landing ship. Even though there was little hope and comrades fell from time to time, many people still managed to enter the landing ship at the critical moment. The landing ships were taking off quickly. As long as they took off and returned to space, they would no longer have to face the harassment of the bugs. But do you think it is really safe? This is a conspiracy staged by spies and bugs, and the progress of all the wars has been calculated long ago. Just as the landing ships took off one after another, the giant plasma worms of the Iraq bugs no longer hid and launched an attack. One after another, plasma sprayed into the sky, almost turning the entire dark night into a blue dream world. The Iraq bugs have a big appetite and obviously do not intend to let go of any human in the Starship Troopers. They fired plasma not only at the landing ships, but also at the spacecraft in outer space. Immediately, the unprepared Starship Troopers suffered an unprecedented heavy blow. Chapter 405. The destruction of Starship Troopers. Because the previous operation went too smoothly, the spaceships of the Starship Troopers had become relaxed. And that was just a conspiracy of the Iraq bugs. Now, they took advantage of the night to suddenly attack, so there was no doubt that they caught the Starship Troopers off guard. What's going on? Didn't we cover the land of nearly 1,000 kilometers with firepower before? How come there are still large numbers of bugs? Quickly leave the orbit of the bug planet. The ship is out of order. There were panic shouts everywhere in the spaceship. And the plasma hit the landing ships of the Starship Troops and the spaceships in space mercilessly, causing incalculable losses. There was chaos in the outer space of the No. 5 bug planet, and it was even more tragic in the atmosphere. A large number of landing ships were hit by plasma in the air, causing explosions, and countless people died. Unfortunately, the landing ship where the Star Marshal was hit by plasma and could not fly into space. It had to start the gliding mode. It was unknown how far it glided. In the end, the landing ship was constantly rubbing against the ground. The personnel inside were only in a coma, and there was no worry about their lives. Time was running out. The Starship Troops were almost destroyed. Only a few ships with minor injuries escaped. Less than 10% of the 200,000 mobile forces escaped. What was even more terrible was that the whereabouts of Star Marshal Vaz and others were unknown. It was suspected that the landing ship they were on was hit by the plasma of the Iraq bug. When the news was passed back to the Federation, all the high-level officials of the Federation immediately felt that this was a joke. How could the Starship Troops be destroyed by a group of bugs? This kind of thing was absolutely impossible. Even if Star Marshal Vaz was stupid, it was impossible for him to destroy the Starship Troopers, not to mention that they were just a group of bugs. Even if they had intelligence, could their intelligence be comparable to that of humans? However, after confirmation, the high-level officials of the Federation were silent. A report on the loss of the Starship Troopers appeared in everyone's hands. Loss report. Of the 80 Starship Troopers, 25 were severely damaged, 39 were dead, and 10 were disintegrated by plasma. Within an hour, a total of 200,000 people, including Marshal Gas and his assistant Daniel, died tragically. Shock. The Supreme Leader of the Federation, Omar, said in disbelief. How is it possible? What happened? She had also seen Gas's plan, and so had others. Logically, this shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't the electromagnetic protection wall effectively block those big bugs? A senior executive said in a deep voice. Now it may be that there is a problem in one of the links, which led to this tragic situation. Omar asked in confusion. What link? Another senior executive said. According to the fighters who escaped from the No. 5 bug star by chance, the electromagnetic protection net is suspected to have been shut down manually. What? Everyone was shocked. This is even more impossible, because no one will shut down the electromagnetic protection wall to let those big bugs in, even if anyone would understand the consequences of doing so. This is the confrontation between two races. It's okay to say that he is a spy, even if he is a spy for the humans of Azure Star, it may be excusable. After all, they are of the same human race, but how could a human spy for a bug? Omar's face immediately sank, and he whispered. Investigate, we must thoroughly investigate this matter. Ordinary people do not have the authority to close the electromagnetic protection wall. If it is a senior official of the Starship Troopers, the situation will be bad. According to the way bugs eat brain marrow to obtain human intelligence, they can easily understand the weaknesses of the Federation. And it is not known whether there is only one spy, or even if there is no one among the senior officials of the Federation. The situation suddenly became bad. Soon after, the most elite investigation team of the Federation appeared and launched an investigation on the senior officials of the Starship Troopers, including their recent whereabouts in the Federation. Finally, after continuous investigation, they finally found some clues. All the problems pointed to the captured brainworm and Daniel, the assistant of the Star Marshal. When watching the surveillance video, everyone was dumbfounded. In the video, Daniel, the assistant of the Star Marshal Vass, was pressing his face against the disgusting brainworm with a pious look. The spy is him. No wonder the electromagnetic protection wall set up by Marshal Gas could be shut down. Generally, no one would suspect his assistant. But no one could understand why a normal person could hold back his disgust and put his face against the disgusting and smooth skin of the brainworm. At this time, a staff member of the investigation team said, according to the investigation, researchers who have been with the brainworm for a long time will have hallucinations, as if there is a voice telling them how to coexist with humans. What? This is what we learned from asking those researchers. Fortunately, they all thought it was an illusion and didn't take it seriously. But from the video, we learned that the Marshal of the Stars also had hallucinations and didn't take it seriously. But his assistant seemed to have changed after looking at the brainworm for a while. Many high-level officials of the Federation were shocked. The elite of the investigation team took out another investigation result and said, through Daniel's communication with the brain, we captured another brainworm called the Worm God above the brainworm. The supreme leader of the Federation immediately said in a deep voice, find a way to destroy the Worm Galaxy as soon as possible. Because the Federation is very close to the Worm Galaxy. The various things that the Iraq bug has shown have made the Federation restless. If it continues to develop like this, then the Iraq bug is very likely to use plasma to push the meteorites with Iraq bug eggs to the Federation as predicted by scientists. But as soon as the words came out, they were depressed. The Federation's only Starship troops suffered a heavy blow. How can they destroy the bugs with intact spacecraft? Even if the Starship troops did not suffer a heavy blow, how can they destroy the bug star in the bug galaxy? At this time, a senior official suggested, aren't there humans on the Azure Star? It would be better if he didn't say it. As soon as the Azure Star was mentioned, everyone was depressed. If it weren't for the appearance of the Azure Star and the robbery, why would the Federation rush to attack the bug star? It's because they went home, and the Federation wanted to take the opportunity to go to the bug star to get some benefits. Finally, the supreme leader of the Federation, Omar, said, okay, when the fleet of Azure Star is about to arrive at the nearby star system, we will send a message to invite those people to come to the Federation. There is no other way to compromise. With the current strength of the Federation, it is still difficult to destroy the potential threat of the Iraq bug, but the humans of Azure Star are different. They can use the Federation as a transit point to attack the bug star. After all, the bug star also has something they are jealous of. The two sides can be said to hit it off. Chapter 406. Insect God. 5 days after the Federation, their observation station discovered abnormal fluctuations in the nearby star field. It is not difficult to guess that it should be the humans from the Azure Star who have returned. The message was reported layer by layer, and the other party was contacted immediately after receiving a reply. Soon, their radio waves contacted many fleets from the Azure Star. Lin Chen was full of doubts. "Invite us to the Federation to discuss something important." Red Queen said. "Yes." Lin Chen nodded. Soon the Wang Xin fleet turned around and headed for the Federation Star. No matter what the other party has, at least they have to go there and pick up all the combat units. Other fleets also received news from the Federation one after another. The spaceships that almost covered a large area collectively turned and also headed for the Federation Star. It didn't take long. Almost all the spaceships from the Azure Star have arrived at the gravity orbit of the Federation. The Supreme Leader of the Federation looked at the picture sent back by the observation station and immediately said with a look of astonishment, "Why are there so many spaceships? But this is also good. Only if the Azure Star is strong enough can the elimination of the Irachi insects be foolproof." The fleet from the Azure Star did not enter the Federation in its entirety. Instead, only a few large spaceships entered the planet to bring back all the previous combat units and to see what the Federation had invited them to do. After a while, several large spaceships entered the planet. It was necessary for everyone to exchange pleasantries with the many high-level officials of the Federation. Afterwards, when the combat units that had been left behind began to return to the spaceships again, Lin Chen asked, "I wonder what happened when you invited us here?" The Federation's top leader, Omar, asked, "Something big happened with the Irachi bugs." Lin Chen and the others disagreed. What big thing could the Irachi bugs do? As long as they were not blindly confident, it would be easy to eliminate the group of low-intelligence bugs. Omar said, "Well, let's talk in the car." The frame had already been prepared, with a row of luxurious motorcades, escorted by the army throughout the journey. General Bit raised his eyebrows and smiled and refused. Omar seemed to have thought of something, and smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I neglected it. Our senior officials in the Federation are in the same car with you. Both sides do not carry weapons." "How about that?" Lin Chen asked. "What is it?" Omar said. "The Irachi worm has subverted our cognition. We caught a brainworm before. This brainworm bewitched a senior official, causing the Starship troops to be almost destroyed. After that, a document about the unexpected encounter of the Starship troops was handed to Lin Chen and others. After reading it, everyone was stunned and said, 'Another human rapist.' In their minds, they couldn't help but think of Jack Sully, the first human rapist on the Azure Star. For an S6 princess, he chose to betray mankind and gave up his human identity. Daniel from the Federation surrendered to the worm. In some senses, he is more despicable than the first Jack Sully." The leader of the Federation was puzzled. "Traitor?" Lin Chen explained. "Betraying humans for their own interests and damaging the interests of humans is called traitor. So there is no doubt that Daniel is a traitor." When everyone heard that another traitor was born in this human world, they immediately became interested in seeing the brainworm. After a while, the Federation's convoy slowly started and headed towards the laboratory. In the car, Omar acted very naturally, as if to avoid unnecessary trouble. She said, "At the beginning, we captured the brainworm just to get more useful information about the Irachi worm, but we didn't expect it to have side effects." Lin Chen was surprised. "What side effects?" Omar said, "Anyone who gets along with the worm for a long time will have hallucinations, both physically and psychologically." General Bit said, "So Daniel had hallucinations and betrayed the Starship troopers? In fact, we don't know the ability of the brainworm." After a while, everyone entered the laboratory. After the investigation by the investigation team, the laboratory at this moment has terminated all research plans, and there are guards with live ammunition all around the room. A guard officer ran over and saluted, "Welcome to the laboratory, sir." At this moment, General Bit was worried that this might be a trap to catch them all and put them under house arrest. Lin Chen was the only one at the scene who still looked as usual without any worry, because if there was anything strange in the Federation, it couldn't do anything to him. Perhaps it was because of Lin Chen's attitude that General Bit's doubts were dispelled. After everyone officially entered the laboratory, the broadcast sounded, "All unauthorized persons, please leave the laboratory immediately." It seemed that in order to avoid more people from hallucinating, the Federation had to do this. After the guards left one after another, a gate on the wall in front slowly opened, revealing the imprisoned brainworm. The Supreme Leader of the Federation introduced, "That's the brainworm we captured." The humans from the Azure Star almost said in unison, "Ugly bug." At the intersection of their eyes, the brainworm that Omar pointed to was extremely ugly, even to the point of being disgusting. It looks like a slug, or the huge belly of an ant queen, but its actual size is much larger. The entire body is occupied by a huge head, making it look very bloated and ridiculous. Its 8 black coal-like eyes are divided into 4 parts, and in the middle is a mouth part shaped like an abalone. The senior officials of the Federation. Perhaps they have a higher understanding of the way of doing things on the Azure Star. The supreme leader of the Federation, Omar, said, "I have something to show you." She asked the guards here to turn on the computer, and immediately a video content appeared, and explained, "This is the surveillance footage of Daniel and the brain control. This is what we recently discovered. It is making mental contact and they are communicating." In the picture, Daniel is sitting devoutly with the brainworm in intimate skin contact, and then a voice came out. "I understand, I will be the servant of the insect god." Lin Chen and others were puzzled. Insect god? To make a comparison of strength, even the 4-winged lizard beasts that were once on the Azure Star can beat these Arachi insects in various ways. Is this kind of insect worthy at being called a god? Yes, we suspect it's not this bug, but most likely a bug we haven't seen before, possibly a highly intelligent creature from a bug star. Lin Chen and the others were a little confused by what they said. Even if it was a highly intelligent creature, it was still a bug, so why create such a solemn atmosphere? Omar said, "We believe that this brainworm was captured voluntarily to provide intelligence from the core, or to develop human spies." In the end, Daniel used this brainworm to contact the bug and regarded the bug as God. At this time, Daniel's voice came out again on the surveillance screen. "Yes, I will let the Starship troops lose the battle to confirm my belief, and then we can discuss the conditions for peace." Lin Chen didn't know how to express it at all. "I have read the information before." Just when everyone returned to the Azure Star, the Federation confidently dispatched the Starship troops to attack the Bug Star, but the Starship troops suffered a devastating blow because of Daniel's betrayal. Human treason. This is a complete human treason. Chapter 407. Brainworm bewitches Lin Chen. There was another conversation afterwards. At the moment, it was 100% confirmed that Daniel, the assistant of the Interstellar Marshal, had betrayed the human camp. Now, the Federation called Lin Chen and others over again, and it seemed that the purpose was obvious. Lin Chen asked, "So you called us here to help you?" The supreme leader of the Federation said, "Daniel is now a spy for the Erect bug, which is very disadvantageous to us." General Bit immediately said, "Wait a minute, it is very disadvantageous to you, and it seems that it has nothing to do with us directly." Omar said, "The brainworm can absorb the human brain to obtain information. If it continues to absorb the human brain, it may evolve into a civilization that we can't imagine. At the time, it will not only endanger the Federation, but also your Azure Star, and even the entire universe. In addition, there are things on the Worm Star that everyone is interested in." Lin Chen asked, "So you were going to?" Omar looked at him with a different look, and said, "Destroy all Erect bugs and eliminate all potential threats." The performance of the Erect bugs has forced the Federation to pay attention. Even if they don't want any Kyber crystals in the future, they must eradicate all Erect bugs. After all, this is a brutal neighbor of a different race, not a neighbor of the same race. In the end, the two sides hit it off. Lin Chen cares more about the system task, launching a racial war. The previous fight with the boss and people made a lot of progress in the task. According to the requirements of the task, it is likely that the system task will be completed after the Arachi worms are eliminated. At this time, the imprisoned brainworm has been paying attention to these humans for a long time. According to the information it has previously absorbed from human brains, it has an intelligence that is not inferior to that of humans. After listening for a long time, it also understands that these people are the leaders of humans. As long as they are bewitched, the Arachi worm can use their technology to madly colonize every planet. Suddenly, it released a powerful brainwave to everyone. We Arachi Z have been seeking ways to coexist with humans. According to Daniel's previous situation, the brainworm is confidently waiting for these high-ranking humans to kneel down and lick itself like Daniel. Although it has absorbed a lot of human brains and understands human habits, it will never understand the complexity of humans. Therefore, this time, the brainwaves not only did not bewitch any human, but successfully attracted everyone's attention. Everyone present was stunned. What the hell, am I hallucinating? Coexisting with worms? It's true. Brainworms will use brainwaves to communicate. In this case, we can't keep brainworms. Obviously, no one was bewitched by the brainworms, but they were all sarcastic. Omar frowned and said angrily, "Tear it down and see what it knows." The brainworm seemed to realize that it had been discovered, and it seemed to realize that these people would not give up, and was ready to tear it down. It immediately released a very strong electric wave. Although it was invisible, there was a harsh hissing sound, which made everyone present couldn't help but cover their ears, feeling that their heads were about to explode, with hideous faces and pain. Only Lin Chen was fine. Perhaps it was the effect of the system. He didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, he looked at the sudden performance of everyone blankly, and quietly took a few steps back, indicating that it had nothing to do with him. The guard officer yelled, "Quickly close the protective wall." A guard endured the explosion of his head and quickly closed the protective wall, but halfway through, the guard's head exploded. The brainworm's huge head began to hit the protective wall with great effort, while still emitting strong brainwaves. Ah! The people present were in agony. Lin Chen. The brainworm seemed to have discovered Lin Chen's abnormality, and its powerful brainwaves immediately swept towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen's head suddenly became clear, and this time it seemed to feel it, and glanced at the 8 black coal-like eyes of the brainworm. The brainworm immediately became quiet. It's not that Lin Chen is a god, nor that Lin Chen has superpowers. It's that he has killed so many terrifying creatures like monsters that he can inadvertently exude a deterrent and momentum that is more terrifying than terrifying creatures. After all, those monsters are enslaved by the Alien Alliance, which is the top power in the galaxy, and belong to the top of the food chain. It's easy for Lin Chen to kill those top creatures, let alone this kind of worm. Even if the brainworm has a high intelligence, it is just a bug, and some instincts have not faded. Faced with the strict racial hierarchy, it showed instinctive fear. The brainworm dared not provoke this human again. Its retina saw a pair of human eyes, which were full of fierceness. A strong sense of crisis and fear came over it. Instinctively, the brainworm immediately became timid, and its powerful brainwaves stopped abruptly. Taking this opportunity, the guard immediately picked up the guard's automatic rifle and fired at the brainworm. Bang, bang, bang! The bullets of a whole magazine hit the brainworm, and its huge head burst into flesh holes as big as thumbs. Many people present were caught off guard and were splashed with yellow thick substances. Lin Chen. He was disgusted by the yellow sticky liquid that looked like brain matter, and quickly stepped back. At this moment, everyone's face was pale and they were gasping for breath, and then they showed a look of relief for surviving a disaster. Without the pain of the head about to explode, it is impossible to understand the mood of these people at this moment. General Bit got up from the ground and frowned at Lin Chen, jealousy rising in his heart. He couldn't understand why Lin Chen didn't suffer. Is there any privilege for being handsome? This is too ridiculous. General Bit looked at Lin Chen and asked, "Why are you okay?" Lin Chen said in confusion, "I don't know, I haven't reacted yet. If I didn't see cold sweat on your faces and blue veins, I would have thought you were going to lie down and blackmail people." General Bit. After that, no one continued to think about why Lin Chen was okay. The supreme leader of the Federation, Omar, stood up with the help of the guard officer, looking extremely embarrassed. The middle-aged woman was originally dressed in a very capable outfit, but now her body was covered with stains, and her face was full of yellow sticky substances. Omar wiped the yellow stains on his face, and laughed angrily. "I'm fine." Look at Daniel. As the second in command of the Starship Troopers, he found God, but what did he do? The surveillance video still played the scene of Daniel rubbing his face devoutly against the smooth skin of the brainworm. Lin Chen also looked at the surveillance again and said, "Do as the other party says. He is a bug. He can't think, protest, or rebel. Only with this attitude can we win the war." Omar said, "I want to know what these bugs are planning. Maybe this is their most powerful weapon." Lin Chen said, "No need, just find that big bug and kill it directly." Finally, after everyone's analysis, they all agreed that the big bug of the Irachi bug was suspected to be on the 5th bug planet. As long as this big bug was solved, the rest would be easy. For a time, the fleet began to move, and the mighty spacecraft set sail again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 408 Great Lord. There were hundreds of densely packed fleets of different sizes of spaceships, occupying a large area of space in Han's universe. These were almost all the spaceships from the Azure Star. This trip was just to destroy a group of low-level bugs, and many people did not take it seriously. As they shuttled through Han's universe, everyone faced a difficult problem that was not a difficult problem. If the fleet was really serious, it could definitely run rampant on the bug star, but it was so difficult to completely destroy the bugs in an entire galaxy. So the problem everyone faced was how to destroy the archie-bugs. For this reason, during the voyage, everyone had been talking about how to truly destroy a race. Byam, the commander of the Sun Never Sets Alliance, said confidently, "Just use a nuclear bomb, why would it be so troublesome?" Everyone. Just a nuclear bomb? If you really want to blow a planet into pieces, with the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, at least 3.5 trillion tons is needed to barely blow up a planet. Of course, if you can only release a nuclear bomb directly at the core of a star, it is estimated that not so much will be used, but it is obviously impossible to send a nuclear bomb to the core of a star. Instead of blowing up the planet, we can release a large number of nuclear bombs to kill the archies. Everyone shook their heads. Where can we get so many nuclear bombs? It would take at least hundreds of thousands of strategic-level nuclear bombs to completely kill the archies. Someone said, it might be feasible to try to push the meteorite. Does any one of you have a spaceship equipped with a high-power propulsion device? Meteorite impact. This is a good idea. A meteorite of more than 10 kilometers is enough to cause a mass extinction of life. Nicotine of the Polar Fleet said confidently, our Jianmeng Fleet's spaceship is equipped with the latest weapons that can emit shockwaves. We can use shockwaves to push meteorites to hit the insect planet. General Bit immediately sneered, shockwaves are useless things that may only be developed by the Polar Empire. General Dog, if you have the guts, come here. Believe it or not, my fleet will beat you back to your blue home in a minute. Say it again. General Bit was furious. Because his name is Bit, I don't know when, the stupid Jianmeng pigs often associate the great General Bit with the pit bull because they are dissatisfied with him. Lin Chen frowned and said, the speed is not fast enough to achieve the desired result. According to my calculations, the archies are led by the brainworms. We may try to kill the brainworms and take away the kyber crystals. In this way, the archies may die without energy intake. What if the planet still has kyber crystals? Do you think kyber crystals can grow on bare ground? Even if they can grow underground, will the archies dig the soil without the brainworms? After a while, after a brief discussion, everyone agreed to this method. After all, other methods are obviously not suitable except this. This is a plan to kill the whole family. Kill the brainworms on every insect planet and take away the kyber crystals, so that the archies can no longer absorb energy. In addition, the insect planets have long lost their complete ecological chain. Over time, they will lose the energy to survive without the need for humans to attack them. In layman's terms, they will starve to death. And here, on the fifth insect planet, people crawled out of a landing ship that was lucky enough to be fine. They didn't know what happened, but they only knew that the Starship troops seemed to have been attacked by the Arach bugs. During the rout, the landing ship was hit by a plasma, and then they didn't remember anything. At this moment, Star Marshal Vaz watched his assistant Daniel walk out of the landing ship and asked hurriedly, "How is it? Can we contact the rescue ship?" Daniel smiled and said, "This landing ship has lost all power. We have checked the fault and it still can't be repaired." He didn't look anxious at all, because he was about to meet the Great Lord. Everyone looked at Daniel in confusion. Everyone's current situation was very bad. They were on the bug star and there was no support, but why didn't this guy look anxious at all? Star Era is Vaz frowned and said, "It seems that we can only go to the old camp to have a look. There may be landing ships that have not been activated." The group did what they said. They walked for about 200 kilometers on foot. With people constantly dying, the last 9 people finally found a landing ship that had also fallen. After investigation, it was found that only the personnel in the landing ship died, but the spaceship was still able to be driven. As long as the oxygen function was repaired, the landing ship could be driven away from the planet. "You repair the spaceship first, I will try to contact them." The Interstellar Marshal kept saying with the communicator, "I am the Interstellar Marshal Gas. I am currently on the 5th insect planet. There are a total of 9 people alive. Please send a rescue ship immediately." After a long time, he finally got in touch. The Interstellar Marshal was overjoyed and hurried to explain the current situation. But soon they were not happy at all, because the message sent by the rescue ship was, "Arrest Daniel immediately." What? Everyone perfectly reflected what happened. But at this moment, the message was interrupted. Boom boom, a burst of earthquakes and mountains shook so much that everyone no longer cared why the landing ship sent the message to arrest Daniel. The interstellar marshal steadied himself and asked, "What happened?" A soldier immediately went out to check after hearing the news, but soon there was a shrill scream, and then there was no sound. Kalala followed by sharp claws that tore the landing ship in half alive. Except for the assistant Daniel, everyone's face changed immediately. They saw a giant worm. At a glance, it was a giant worm that was taller than the mountain. It was somewhat similar to the brain worm, with the same 8 eyes, but this giant worm at this moment was more like a fully evolved body. It seemed that the body exposed now was just a head, and the rest of the body parts were underground. It was hard to imagine how big the body of this giant worm would be. And many curved claws grew on the ground, like the sickle of the god of death, which was extremely sharp. At this moment, Daniel immediately showed ecstasy when he saw this scene. He walked out of the landing ship that was torn in half in a few steps. He didn't seem to be afraid of this giant worm. He walked slowly forward, constantly looking at the giant worm, as if he was watching a great miracle. The giant worm opened its mouth and a strong wind blew Daniel's clothes and hair, but he didn't feel disgusted at all. Instead, he looked enjoyable and performed a dog-licking behavior. Daniel said loudly and devoutly, "Great Lord, this day has finally arrived. I am standing before you. Let us begin to communicate." Facing the insect that was as big as a mountain, Daniel wanted to have the most intimate contact with this great lord immediately. The giant insect moved, and some human corpses that were hooked to death by its claws spoke. "Yes, it's time to start talking." Daniel looked at a corpse in astonishment and asked, "Aodyon Hegai, is that you?" Those corpses that were hooked by claws should have been controlled by the giant insect, or become part of the giant insect. They said, "They speak for me. You should feel more comfortable talking in human language. You new comrades and friends have become my believers." Chapter 409 Lin Chen gets angry. Marshal Vass and his companions were horrified. The claws that emerged from the ground at this moment were hooking corpses that were once their most familiar comrades and friends. Assistant Daniel was ecstatic, as if he was flattered, and said, "Thank God, you care about me so much, and make me full of love, joy and confidence." The corpses that became part of the giant insect said, "You will become one of us." Daniel said ecstatically, "Then I will understand you. You will understand what we know. You will also understand me, and through me, understand all of humanity." Through the conversation between the giant insect and Daniel, Marshal Vass seemed to understand something. Why did Daniel's strange behavior lead him to find some kind of faith? Why was the electromagnetic protection wall of the defensive base closed? Why did the rescue ship claim to arrest Daniel before? From the current point of view, all of this, the huge loss of the Starship troops was a conspiracy of Daniel and this giant insect. They worked together to play with the Starship troopers. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The enraged Star Marshal punched Daniel to the ground and roared, "How dare you, you bastard, betray the Starship troopers, betray that Federation, and betray all of humanity." Daniel got up from the ground without any sense of shame. Instead, he scolded in a preaching tone, "I am negotiating peace with a race that is superior to us. Only by reaching an agreement with the Great Lord can the final destination of mankind." Star Marshal Vaz punched him again and roared, "Bullshit." Daniel knocked the Star Marshal to the ground and said, "You don't understand. Human life is only a mere 100 years, while the Great Lord has an endless lifespan. I am talking about the future development of mankind and the Great Lord. Only when the two races merge together can we become stronger." Then, he faced the Great Lord and said devoutly, "Please forgive me. We humans still have a lot to learn. Let's learn from this person. He is Star Marshal Vaz. He is the key to the conflict. From now on, let your laws rule the human world and let paradise come." It can be imagined that Daniel, who was bewitched at this moment, had reached a state of extreme enthusiasm for the giant insects. It was hard to imagine what would happen if the insects came to rule the human world, but it would definitely not be a good scene. However, these were not what Daniel considered. He was considering how to be a good servant of the master. The voice of the giant insect came again. "Why did you do this? I evolved, I sacrificed everything, so that I could create a great peace with you, but there are always humans who want to mess it up. We also seek peace, but the methods are different. We seek human knowledge, including technology. Knowledge is the key to communication. Only in this way can we, the human race, be different and live in harmony. Everyone will become one of us, provide the necessary knowledge, and pacify the human race." The giant insect was in a state of full confidence at this moment. It is the insect god, the master of everything, and it is about to obtain human intelligence and knowledge, and it won't take long. It will allow humans to mate and reproduce with the insects, and evolve into a new species. With the addition of human technology, it may become the true master of the entire universe in the future. At this time, hundreds of ships from the fleet of Azure Star and their few remaining warships of the Starship Troops had just entered the atmosphere and appeared above the giant worm. The terrain scan showed an incredible picture. Fuck, what a big worm. It's really a worm as big as a mountain. It seems to be part of the worm that appeared from the ground. If all of them appeared, how big would they be? The crew members on the ships of the fleet exclaimed. They all saw a huge worm on the monitor. If it weren't for the high technology looking down, it would be very likely that the worm would be seen as a mountain. Lin Chen also saw it, and in doubt, he said to himself, could it be that this one is the worm god above the brain worm? After all, such a large worm is really rare. It is impossible for such a behemoth to appear on a large scale, so it is very likely that this mountain-like worm is their primary target to hunt. At this moment, in the sky, countless warships and ships crossed the sky, covering the sky and the sun, not only bringing an attitude of sweeping everything, but also bringing an extremely shocking visual impact. The spaceships did not act rashly, in order to avoid missing out on the insects. Instead, they blew up the Kyber crystals first. Only when all the Kyber crystals in the insect nest were taken away, would it be time to use real weapons. Seeing this scene, the people on the ground could not help but look up and cheer. What is that? It's a warship that belongs to us humans. We are saved, this big insect is no match for us humans. It was almost a dead end, but the appearance of the warship gave Marshal Gas and his men hope to survive. What a giant insect, it's just garbage in front of the human warship, even a round of firepower coverage can blow this giant insect to pieces. Confidence. This is the blind confidence in the human race from the depths of the soul. Daniel was furious, and almost roared like thunder. Bullshit, the Lord is invincible, and the human warship is just a weak one in front of the Great Lord. Marshal Gas and 7 officers and soldiers endured and endured, but they couldn't hold it back. With a wave of his hand, the 7 officers and soldiers surrounded Daniel with a bad face. Dong dong dong, a burst of hammering to relieve the evil in his heart. At this moment, because of his body, the worm god could not have flexible body organs like humans, so he could not look up at the sky like humans. At this moment, it didn't know what was happening above its head, but only thought that the few humans at the moment would become nutrients and become part of its body. The corpses on the hooks said, "Become one of us." The huge claws extending from the ground slid and directly hooked up a warrior, becoming a part of its body, which not only enriched the giant worm's understanding of humans, but also absorbed its life experience. The giant insect was full of confidence. The corpse on its claws said, "It is really a perfect race to become nutrients. Perhaps through human women, we can breed the evolution of Arachi insects and humans." The voice was not loud, but not only was it clearly heard by the interstellar Marshal Vass and others, but it was also clearly heard by the fleet in the sky through the instruments. This is almost an insult to the dignity that humans jointly defend. Let human women and insects reproduce. It seems that this giant insect has evolved to a point that no one expected, and has also evolved to a point where it cannot be kept. Everyone in the fleet looked gloomy. Who doesn't have a female relative, and a bug is actually planning some kind of evil insult? Lin Chen's eyes were indifferent, and he tried his best to resist the urge to summon the test machine. After a long time, he said to the artificial intelligence Red Queen, "Deploy the mecha, let Ichuan lead the team, and slowly torture the insect to death for me." Red Queen faithfully executed every order of Lin Chen, and her virtual body said, "Okay." Chapter 410. What are you looking at? Fight. Lin Chen's eyes were calm, and he tried his best to resist the urge to summon the test machine. After a long time, he said to the artificial intelligence Red Queen, "Deploy the mecha, let Ichuan lead the team, and slowly torture the bugs to death for me." Red Queen faithfully executed every order of Lin Chen, and her virtual body said, "Okay." After a while, Red Queen's voice resounded throughout the fleet. "The mecha will be deployed soon. Please prepare for battle, drivers, led by Ichuan, and be sure to torture the giant bugs in the most cruel way." Repeat. Ichuan immediately became full of fighting spirit. It was time for the protagonist to appear again. Then a group of drivers ran out of the lounges and quickly came to the delivery cabin to take the mecha. The delivery cabins of several battleships opened their doors one after another. Swoosh, 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 one by one, the Mechas began to be deployed and flew out of the battleships. These Mechas appeared in a cool and compelling way, and they transformed in the sky and became humanoid forms. The 8-meter-tall humanoid Mechas looked extremely heroic. They had particle beam guns in their left hands and particle beam swords in their right hands, and the double wing thrusters behind them sprayed a faint blue light. Nearly 100 Mechas were suspended in the sky like heroic gods descending from the earth, looking down at the giant insects below. However, even such a visually impactful scene did not become the most eye-catching focus of the scene. Because it was not only the Wang Xing fleet that deployed Mechas. Among the fleets here, there was not only one top force, the Wang Xing Empire. Boom, 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 the earth transmitted a dull sound and splashed the sky with smoke and dust. When the smoke and dust dissipated, a giant mecha was revealed, including the dangerous Wanderer, the Alpha, and the Angel. One after another, the large Mechas landed and made a brilliant appearance, which was cool and compelling. The forces of the Azure Star once again put aside their past grudges and fought side by side again to defend the common dignity in the hearts of mankind. Swoosh, 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 the Mechas from the Wang Xing fleet appeared on the shoulders or heads of the giant Mechas on the ground. They showed the power of mankind and faced the giant insect half a kilometer away together. Although these giant Mechas have terrifying bodies of dozens of meters, they still seem much smaller when facing this giant insect. It was initially determined that the giant insect had drilled out from the ground. With just a head, it was estimated to be at least 400 meters high. Since all the Mechas appeared, their purpose would be the same, to slowly torture the giant insect to death. At this moment, the Star Marshal and others were overjoyed, and no one could be more excited than them. Although these Mechas did not represent the Federation, their goal was the same as the Federation's, to destroy the insects. A soldier said, "So cool." Star Marshal gasped dissatisfiedly, "Our Federation's Mechas are also cool." As he spoke, it was as if he was slapped in the face. 7 Mechas from the Federation also fell from the sky. Under the action of the huge thrusters behind them, these 7 Mechas would not become a pile of broken copper and iron when they fell to the ground. Once these 7 Mechas from the Federation landed, they also appeared at the feet of the dangerous Wanderer. That's right, at the foot. Because the Mechas were too small and could not fly, they could only appear at the foot. If you don't look carefully, you can hardly see the Mechas from the Federation, because the limelight was all overshadowed by those giant Mechas. The faces of the Star Marshal and others turned red. Just a second ago, they said that the Federation's Mechas were also cruel, and the next second, the Federation's Mechas appeared at the feet of those giant Mechas. It was simply crushing the sky. The 7 pilots of the Federation were also very ashamed. What are you doing here? Are you embarrassing yourself? Look at the Mechas of the Azure Star, which are all kinds of cool and awesome. Look at the Federation's broken copper and iron that can barely be considered a mecha. Not only are they ugly, but they are also small and can't fly. They came out to embarrass themselves. At this moment, the giant insect also discovered these things from humans. From the human nutrients it absorbed, it learned that these were Mechas, very powerful Mechas. They were from the Azure Star Combat Unit and had more powerful strength than the Federation. Giant insect. Oh, the Federation can beat the Arachi insects. The reason why the Arachi insects have the upper hand now is just using conspiracy and tricks, but now they are facing the military force of the Azure Star directly. It had also absorbed nutrients from the humans of Azure Star, and was well aware of the power of Azure Star. So it originally planned to grow slowly, and when it had enough strength after digesting the Federation, it would go to pacify the humans of Azure Star. But it never thought that it would have to face the power of Azure Star directly now. After all, it had absorbed the deeds of Azure Star through the nutrients of the humans of Azure Star, and it was an extremely powerful world. The giant insect suddenly felt a little scared. The two sides were deadlocked for about a minute, looking at each other. Soon, Lin Chen's impatient voice reached every mecha. "What are you looking at? Fight!" Squeak, squeak, squeak. The Mechas from the Wang Xing fleet raised their particle beam guns in their hands. If they hit the vital points, just one round would be able to make nearly 100 holes in the head of the giant insect. Lin Chen had been paying attention to the bottom. Seeing that powerful weapons were used directly, he immediately said again, "Don't use energy weapons yet, try to use ammunition weapons." The flying Mechas retracted their particle beam guns one after another, and instead became a show for those giant Mechas. Several Alpha Mechas from the Polar Empire launched an attack, and the pilot inside shouted, "Fire the useless missiles." More than a dozen missiles were launched, rushing towards the giant insect's head with thick tail flames. Boom boom, a series of explosions appeared on the giant insect's head, blowing out orange-yellow fireballs and dust on the giant beast. This time it was no longer the corpses that became part of the giant insect's body that made the sound, but the mouth parts on the giant insect's head made a huge wail. Such an attack looks fierce, or this giant insect has reached the point where its skin is rough and its flesh is thick, and ordinary ammunition can hardly hurt it. When the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, everyone on the spacecraft immediately turned on the scanning function. They saw that more than a dozen useless missiles only left more than a dozen burnt marks on the giant insect's head. Everyone immediately breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Fortunately, the strength of this shell is not enough, otherwise if it directly blows the giant insect to death, it would be too easy for it. What are you waiting for? Hit it hard. A burst of relief. Just don't hit the giant worm, so you don't have to worry about accidentally killing it. The Mecha Angel of the Sun Never Sets Alliance also showed off. The 12 gold cents didn't succeed in showing off before, that was purely accidental, so they wanted to regain their lost face. Baptism of Holy Light. Judgment of Holy Light. Still adhering to the consistent style of the Sun Tribal Alliance, although the attack was not very good, the slogans were shouted very loudly. It was just a cash tank close-in defense gun and a 9-headed bird missile, but in their mouths, it became a variety of high-end and classy weapons. Several angels launched intensive attacks, forming an intertwined firepower network and rushing towards the giant worm. For a while, the giant worm with only one head drilled out of the ground was beaten all over the body. The explosion sounded up and down, and it lasted for a long time. After a long time, the Angel of the Sun Never Sets Alliance was turned off, and the explosion on the giant worm also disappeared, but the smoke and dust spread and rushed into the sky, making it impossible for people to see whether the giant worm was still alive. Everyone present couldn't help but feel nervous. Chapter 411 Humans, you successfully annoyed me. People seemed to want to see through the smoke and dust to see if the giant worm was still alive. No one wanted to kill the giant worm directly. After a long time, when the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, the giant worm that had been baptized by artillery fire was revealed. It was not killed by the artillery fire. After all, it had lived for endless years, and its body defense had evolved to an unimaginable level. Even if humans used advanced weapons, they only left pieces of burnt marks on its rough skin. People breathed a sigh of relief and laughed. Fortunately, it hasn't been killed yet. They were not afraid that the giant worm could not be killed. After all, there were still energy weapons that had not been used. Now they were afraid that the giant worm would be killed directly. At this moment, although the giant worm did not suffer any substantial damage, the burning sensation from its skin made it want to wailing pain. The giant worm stretched out many hooks from the ground, which were full of human corpses. Or they should use them to describe it. After all, it had become a part of the giant worm's body. These corpses all said, "Go to hell, you evil humans." A claw that stretched out from the ground without hooking a human corpse was as big as a 100-year-old tree, and it was as sharp as the sickle of the god of death. It attacked a dangerous wanderer. The driver in the dangerous wanderer shouted excitedly, "Come on." The 80-meter giant mecha took a fighting posture. But before it could act, a golden light flashed at the shoulder, as fast as a meteor, flashing at high speed. This is a pillar sword. Yi Chuan still maintained the shape after swinging the sword while driving the mecha, which was cool and compelling. With a sound of swish, the particle beam sword that was blown away by hair and cut iron like mud was like cutting tofu. With a light stroke, the claw broke into and fell to the ground, revealing a sticky yellow juice, which was suspected to be the blood of the giant insect. There was only a mouth part with a radius of 100 meters in the middle of the head of the giant insect, which was about 400 meters long, and it let out a shrill wail. This was the first time it had suffered such a heavy blow since it had gained wisdom. To be honest, the giant insect had already felt fear and powerlessness. These humans were even more powerful than the information it had absorbed from nutrients. How could it fight? Its attacks were easily resolved by the other party. And it had also learned through the perception between the Arachi insects that a human fleet had appeared above its head. Although this giant insect could not see the top of its head, it could still see it by controlling the Arachi insects. When it sensed that the human fleet had appeared above its head, it wanted to escape when it saw that the situation was not good, but no matter what, as the supreme existence of the Arachi insect, it also understood something called dignity after digesting the knowledge of nutrients. The dignity of the insect god should not be trampled on. In this case, the claws that stretched out from the ground hooked the corpses of humans, which had become part of the giant insect. These corpses said in unison, "Humans, you have successfully angered me." Boom boom, a strong earthquake shook the mountain. Everyone be careful, this giant insect is about to use a big move. However, the next second, the giant insect's huge head was sinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. The people at the scene were on guard, but soon they didn't understand and all showed surprised expressions. Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. People seemed to understand and all showed speechless expressions. The giant insect was ready to escape after making a harsh remark. Lin Chen's voice reached the ears of the drivers of each mecha. Don't let it run away. But the giant insect didn't just run away. Through some special connection, it made the Erek insects from all directions rush here, and even the Erek insects from the entire planet were coming in this direction. After all, the giant insect is an intelligent insect. Its huge body may not have any effect on human weapons, but the cannon fodder-like Erek insects are different. Even if it bites, it can bite all these human weapons to death. However, as the leader of the Erek insect, it must first protect itself. Almost in the blink of an eye, dense Erek insects appeared from all directions, rushing towards these Mechas like a torrent. At this moment, a rescue ship from the Starship troops quickly descended to rescue the interstellar Marshal Vass. The situation was urgent. A steady stream of Erek bugs were about to come. Marshal Gas and several survivors had no time to be polite and boarded the rescue ship as quickly as possible. Daniel also jumped on the rescue ship. Marshal Gas kicked him down and couldn't help cursing. "What are you doing up here? Go find your god." Daniel hurriedly grabbed the railing and refused to let go, saying, "Let me up, everything I do is for all mankind." The marshal kicked him down and cursed, "Get down, you bastard." Daniel refused to let go. If he let go, he would be finished. He would fall into the sea of bugs and be torn into countless pieces. At this time, the driver said, "Let Daniel come up. The Federation has sent a message to arrest him and take him back to accept the trial of the Federation to play a role in diverting social contradictions." Marshal Gas stopped kicking his former assistant, today's traitor. The rescue ship was rising rapidly. Looking down from above, it was really an endless sea of insects. It was hard to see the end at a glance. They were everywhere, rushing towards the Mechas, and they were determined to kill the Mechas on the ground at all costs. The Star Marshal was shocked and said, "Not good, quickly contact all the spacecraft to leave this planet." Since the sea of insects is about to appear, the plasma insects will also appear and become the nemesis of the spacecraft. The plasma insects can be regarded as the air defensive force of the Erek insects. The result of the near destruction of the Starship troops was the credit of these plasma insects. And now, the dense fleets in the sky gathered together, aren't they sitting ducks? The pilot of the spaceship said, "The Azure Starfleet sent a message saying that we should just stay behind them." Interstellar Marshal Vaz was puzzled and asked, "What do you mean? Don't they know how terrible plasma bugs are?" The rescue ship took off quickly and flew over the Azure Starfleet as requested by the other party. In this way, even if plasma attacked, the first thing to be hit would be the Azure Star spaceship, not the few spaceships of the Starship troopers. Just when he was puzzled, there were plasma bugs in the endless sea of bugs, and they began to launch plasma towards the fleet in the sky. One after another, plasma with a faint blue light attacked the fleet. Interstellar Marshal Vaz's heart immediately tightened in his throat. What he feared would come true. Chapter 412. The giant insect compromised. Oh no, this will definitely cause heavy losses. The Interstellar Marshal slapped his thigh in annoyance, and his words were full of worry, but he knew nothing about the real power. Since the fleet dared to enter the atmosphere, it would not be afraid of the plasma emitted by the plasma bugs. One after another, the plasma was coming towards the fleet, and it was impossible to avoid it now. At this moment, Lin Chen frowned and said, "What a trouble. This is just a trouble, but it is not a fatal crisis for the fleet." Immediately afterwards, because each spacecraft had more or less obtained some Kyber crystals before, it would naturally not be stingy with the energy of the spacecraft. What's more, the current consumption represents the problem of how much Kyber crystals will be allocated in the future. The moment the defensive function was turned on, a blue barrier was erected around the fleet from the Azure Star like a water curtain. One after another, the plasma hit the blue barrier, except for causing the barrier to ripple softly, there was no actual effect. Of course, the fleet will not always be in a passive state of being beaten. Later, it showed its unparalleled strength, and tractor beams were fired one after another. Soon, the energy weapons began to show their true power. If we only talk about the range of damage, ammunition is definitely more efficient, but energy weapons also have their own advantages, that is, energy rays can be controlled. Wherever the turret moves, the energy ray will move there, and during this period, the huge energy will sweep away all living and dead things in the process of movement. This is the power that humans rely on for survival, the power of technology. Interstellar Marshal Gas exclaimed. Fuck, what a strong fleet. It's not that he hasn't seen the attack of that fleet of Azure Star before, but that was the scene after the hit on the No. 1 insect star from a distance, but at this moment, seeing it with his own eyes, still makes him feel scared. At the intersection of vision, these fleets emit colorful energy rays, sweeping back and forth continuously, and countless Arak insects are turned into powder. The place where the energy ray sweeps is even more messy, all of which are deep or shallow gullies. Time is running out, and the nearby Arak insects are swept away. Although there is still a steady stream of Arak insects rushing here in the distance, it is impossible to reach here in a short time, not to mention that the fleets have a clear division of labor. If you want Kyber crystals, you have to work hard. After clearing the Arak worms in the nearby area, some spaceships also began to go to spaceships everywhere to catch the Arak worms that had temporarily arrived from afar. When the spaceships received orders and began to execute their respective tasks, Lin Chen was not idle either. The giant worm ran away from the underground, and it must be pulled out. After a series of high-tech underground explorations, a 3D rendering of the No. 5 worm planet composed of various colors was finally generated. Just one glance, everyone was shocked. It's so big. This was the voice that sounded at the same time. Because the 3D rendering shows that the giant worm is very large, so large that it is unimaginable, and its body is almost reaching the core area of the Earth. It can be said that the giant worm occupies at least 1/8 of the underground space of this planet, and it is not an exaggeration to even say that this planet is the body of the giant worm. This is the largest creature that humans have ever seen, no one else. It must have lived for an endless number of years to evolve into such a terrifying size. No wonder this giant insect has developed wisdom. After all, if a pig lives for tens of thousands of years, it might become a spirit. However, since the giant insect hid underground, everyone did not intend to let it go. Do you think it is really safe? Lin Chen suggested. Use shock missiles. As the name suggests, the kinetic energy generated by this missile is similar to the effect of an earthquake, and it is also one of the practical weapons that the fleet must have. The fleets of various forces nodded in agreement and said, yes, let the giant insect feel the pain of having to come out. Soon, shock missiles were launched into the giant cave left after the giant insect escaped. No one knew where they were launched. But everyone knew that an earthquake was about to happen. Boom boom, the ground began to shake violently. The strong tremor caused the thick soil to begin to crack, and huge winding gullies hundreds of meters deep and tens of kilometers long appeared. The ground was still shaking. And the giant insect was in a state of panic underground. This feeling was that it was vibrating in all directions. The vibration from the outside to the inside constantly eroded the giant insect's body, making it almost lose its mind and restore its insect instinct. Damn human. The giant insect could no longer bear this terrible situation. It escaped the same way it escaped. If it hid underground again, it would be shaken to death without the humans taking action. After a while, the giant insect's huge head finally escaped from the ground. It felt a lot more relaxed and its mind was much clearer. However, before it had time to enjoy this relaxing feeling, it suddenly discovered that the situation at the scene was not good. The Arachi insect army had been wiped out by humans for a long distance, and at the moment, the opponent's mecha was still standing there as if waiting for itself. The giant insect stretched out its claws and took the corpses of a human and said, "Damn human, I am the great insect god." No one paid attention to this big insect, and it took action directly without any martial ethics. A dangerous wanderer aimed the energy cannon at the giant insect and fired a shot. The powerful energy attack directly pierced part of the brainworm's head. The Mechas from the Wangxin fleet soared into the sky. Swoosh, 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 the speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they appeared around the giant insect's huge head. The Mechas lit up the particle beam swords in their hands, and the power was turned to the maximum. The particle beam swords turned into giant lightsabers about 10 meters long. Although these Mechas were not big, they had perfect performance. Every swing of the lightsabers in their hands caused a huge wound on the head of the giant insect, just like a group of mosquitoes constantly devouring the life functions of the giant insect. There was not much time left. The head of the giant insect had been scratched by the Mechas with particle beam swords. The original yellow skin was also covered with sticky juice from the wound. And the big black eye was even more pierced by Ichuan with 3 particles with Lin Chen's permission. Ah, you damned humans should all die. The giant insect could no longer bear this pain and kept screaming. These humans are devils. I can feel my life force disappearing. If I don't escape from here, it won't be long before I'll be tortured to death by these human Mechas. Boom boom, the giant insect's head sank again and began to burrow underground. But it was useless. Everyone on the fleet saw what was happening below clearly. When they saw the giant insect running underground again, they all smiled. This smile was mocking the ignorance of the giant insect. Soon, a new round of shock missiles was launched again, and another earthquake occurred. Then the giant insect's huge head came out from the ground again. At the moment, there is no place to escape, and there is no place to hide. If you come out, you will be bullied by these hateful humans. It's really annoying. Why don't we talk about the conditions and let peace come? The giant insect compromised and said that they would get through this difficult time first. Chapter 413. To bullying. The external broadcast function of the Wangxin fleet was turned on, and Lin Chen's voice came out. Okay, the condition for peace is to hand over all the kyber crystals that the insects absorb energy, and to destroy the Iraq insects. You are bullying the insects too much. The giant insect was extremely angry. Can't escape, can't beat, and cannon fodder Iraq insects can't be relied on. These humans are still torturing themselves. Damn it, fight them. Boom boom, the earth began to shake again, but this time it was not an earthquake, but the body of the giant insect was coming out. It wanted to right the last unyielding and stubbornness from the insect god. All the small fish go to hell, this is the wrath of God. The angry voice of the giant insect came, and its body continued to rise. In a short while, it had drilled part of its body out of the ground, so that its huge head looked at the human fleet. Its dark eyes glared at it, and its dense claws became even thicker and stronger, attacking the human fleet. However, swish swish swish, golden light streamed like meteors. Every time it appeared, it would cut off a giant insect's claw. After a while, all the giant insect's claws were cut off, and now the giant insect was left with a bare body, which looked even more funny and ugly. It was even more embarrassing. It was clearly coming out of the ground to suffer. The giant insect looked at the fleet angrily, and the people in the fleet were also looking at the giant insect through the glass. After a long time, Lin Chen said, "Fire the freezing bomb." For a moment, the Mechas guarding the safety of the fleet in the sky opened their right palms, and blue light flashed in them. This was the prelude to loading the freezing bomb. Swoosh, 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 the Mechas in the sky were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they shot the loaded freezing bombs into the giant insect's body. Any part of the giant insect's body that was hit by the freezing bomb would make a sound of freezing. This was the freezing bomb starting to exert its power, causing its body to freeze quickly. The Mechas on the ground were not idle either, and they fired high-explosive napalm bombs one after another, and the inextinguishable fire was burning the giant insect's body. This is called the Second World of Ice and Fire. At this moment, the giant insect was almost tortured to death by these humans. It was like an ice cave above and a furnace below, making it feel tormented and painful. And all of this was caused by these hateful humans. It could only wail and curse in pain. You damned humans, even if you destroy the Irachi's egg, one day you'll be destroyed by other races. This is a curse. I curse that you humans will have constant bad luck in the future and will be forever removed from the universe. Lin Chen sneered. You were about to die, but you are still stubborn. Keep torturing me. Then there was another round of inhumane torture attacks. The giant insect wailed in pain. Apart from this, there was no other way. This was really a road to heaven and a door to hell. If it escaped underground, it would be attacked by humans and the earth would shake. If it didn't come out, it would be shaken to death. If it came out, it would be tortured by these hateful humans. And its claws were all cut off by human weapons, so it seemed that it had no choice but to wait for death. The fire was still blazing, the ice crystals were still spreading and covering the giant worm, and the giant worm was still wailing in pain. The two kinds of damage from ice and fire were still devouring the giant worm's life functions. But everyone present was extremely indifferent, waiting for the giant worm to lose all its life functions. As time went on, this most cruel torture lasted for a full 5 hours. During this period, the human mecha continued to wipe damage, and finally the giant worm lost all its life functions. Is it dead now? Everyone was very surprised. In their sight, the body parts that had been tortured beyond recognition and emerged from the ground showed two kinds of miserable conditions after being injured. The upper part of the head had turned into ice crystals, and the lower part of the head had been charred. In the case of Wari, the fleet launched another round of attacks. Several energy rays with a diameter of about 10 meters swept back and forth across the giant worm's body, and finally split the giant worm's huge head into several sections. After confirming that the giant worm could not be resurrected, they stopped. At this time, the army of Arachi insects seemed to be no longer acting in unison because of the tragic death of the insect god. They turned into a kind of beast without thinking but only instinct, and even fought with other Arachi insects. This is the situation after losing the control of the insect god. With the insect god, it can become a medium for Arachi insects, making them feel no pain and fear, but after losing the insect god, a high-level intelligent creature, the Arachi insects have become less of a concern. At this moment, the current situation of the Arachi insects was seen. Everyone smiled, and the remaining time was the time to harvest. Lin Chen said, "Go find the nest of the Arachi insects and take away all the Kyber crystals on this planet." All fleets immediately went to find the nest of the Arachi insects with full enthusiasm. A month later, under the superior attack of humans, the insect galaxy only had the last insect star that had not been looted by humans. However, today is the day when the human fleet will go to the insect galaxy to sweep the last wave of Kyber crystals. Dense warships flew into the insect star. The Arek bugs on this insect planet did not get into a mess. After all, even if the insect god died, they were still controlled by the brain bugs. As soon as the fleet entered the insect planet, it was immediately attacked by plasma bugs, but there was no actual effect at all. The human side was obviously well prepared. Under the sweep of the energy outlet, a large number of Arek bugs died tragically. After clearing a safe area, combat units will be sent to find the nest of Arek bugs. Invincible Mechas were deployed one after another. 3 days later, the nest of Arek bugs was found. Lin Chen said, "Let the Marines enter the nest, and other combat units will cover the Marines in the outside world to transport the Kyber crystals." Soon, the Marines had reached the ground. With their powered combat suits, they could almost ignore all attacks from the Arek bugs. The crazy Arek bugs on the ground were not their target, because they were covered and cleaned up by other combat units. They had to go deep into the nest of the Arek bugs and clean up all the bugs inside, and provide safety for the people who subsequently transported the Kyber crystals. A captain of the Marine Corps said, "Let's go into the nest." Then he took off the electromagnetic rifle on his back and led the way into the nest. Behind them, other troops were clearing the endless stream of Arek bugs, and also providing security for the troops that would carry the Kyber crystals later. Soon, the Marines in the Arek bug nest started a fierce battle with the Arek bugs in the nest. The Arek bugs were torn into countless pieces under the powerful spike bullets, but even so, they still launched a suicidal attack on the Marines fearlessly. Even the Arek bug army that was blocked outside the nest became crazy. But it was useless. The Marines in the nest were wearing power combat suits to provide security for the soldiers, and the electromagnetic rifles in their hands could tear the Arek bugs into countless pieces. Outside the nest, it was easy to clear the endless stream of bugs. After all, there was a fleet in the sky that could provide energy attacks, and often each energy ray sweep could clear a large safe area. Chapter 414 New Mission Rewards Imperial Class Star Destroyer. Soon, the nest of the Arek was completely cleared, and the Marines had found Kyber crystals deep in the nest according to past experience. These Arek insects seemed to have a habit of collecting Kyber crystals. As long as their nests were found, Kyber crystals could always be found. All the Kyber crystals on the entire planet were collected here. The nest was full of insect corpses, which was extremely messy. The Marines were in no mood to clean it up, and only notified the nest above that the Kyber crystals had been safely found. After that, they were no longer responsible for the things here. The news quickly spread to the fleet. Great. This is a great harvest. Something feels unsatisfactory. People were excited because this trip through the starry sky made everyone earn a lot of money. When the Kyber crystals were distributed in the future, even the small forces from the Azure Star would be able to allocate a lot of Kyber crystals. Immediately, the ground troops were sent again to transport the Kyber crystals. This was the Kyber crystal of the last insect planet. As long as all of them were taken away, it would be equivalent to completely cutting off the survival of the Arek. Soon, the combat units sent by the fleet each performed their duties. Some were responsible for clearing the army of Arek bugs, and some were responsible for carrying Kyber crystals. The scene was accompanied by dense gunfire, presenting a very lively scene. This situation lasted for 4 days and 4 nights, and finally all the Kyber crystals of the bug planet were completely moved away. All the planets in the entire bug galaxy were also looted by the fleet from humans. Until the Kyber crystals could no longer be detected, the fleet slowly flew to the Federation to distribute the Kyber crystals looted from the bug planet. As for the Arek bugs, the fleet did not completely destroy them, and it could not do so at the current capabilities. However, killing the brainworms of the Iraq bugs and taking away the kyber crystals on which they depended for survival, I think this plan to wipe out the family will not take long. The Iraq bugs will die because of the exhaustion of their own energy without a complete ecological chain. Along the way, the people in the fleet talked and laughed. No matter which planet the forces came from, it was a worthwhile trip. They could be allocated kyber crystals without any effort, which make many people yearn for the vast starry sky again. Without traveling through the vast universe, you will never be able to experience the magnificence of the universe. The giant worm and that kyber crystal, no matter what kind of thing, have almost subverted people's previous imagination. However, Lin Chen's excitement at this moment was not written on his face, and he did not intend to share it with anyone. Because a prompt sounded in his mind. As expected, just as Lin Chen guessed, this time the starry sky travel to destroy the Iraq worm will complete the task. He couldn't wait to open the system panel. Host: Lin Chen. Task 1. Start a racial war. Already completed, please claim the task. Fan value: 120 million. That's the basic situation. Lin Chen clicked to claim the task without hesitation. Beep, reward Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer information. The cold voice came to his mind. Lin Chen's breathing immediately became rapid. This is the ultimate killer. With a Star Destroyer, if you don't like a planet, you can just blow it up. Soon, a huge amount of knowledge flooded into his mind. This process was not painful, but it felt like these knowledge materials had once belonged to him, and there was an indescribable enlightenment. It was as if Lin Chen was the actual creator of this Star Destroyer, and every part could be handled just right. However, after learning about the performance of the Star Destroyer, Lin Chen was immediately embarrassed. The name of the Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer is very loud, and its strength is also very strong. However, it is far from being able to easily destroy a planet. It is not that the Star Destroyer cannot destroy a planet, but the model is wrong. This I-Type Star Destroyer belongs to a conventional type of Star Destroyer. Even so, Lin Chen also believes that once the Empire Class I-Type Star Destroyer comes out, it will cause an unprecedented sensation. Although it is not the strongest, the Empire Class I-Type Star Destroyer is the most cost-effective. Through understanding, the Star Destroyer is a necessary trend for future development. The Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer will be the most powerful and significant symbol of the Imperial fleet, and will also be a miracle of shipbuilding engineering technology. Lin Chen dared to conclude that the Imperial Class Star Destroyer will roam the Andromeda Galaxy for decades and hundreds of years in the future, and will bear the symbol of the Empire's power. The heavy weapons platform, planetary attack, planetary defensor, anti-ship warfare, light ship carrier, the Star Destroyer has excellent performance in all aspects. It can be said that a fleet composed of Star Destroyers can outperform a task force composed of multiple warships, such as the current Third Combined Fleet. A Star Destroyer is even stronger than the best-performing spaceship battleship of the Wangxian Empire. In the days that followed, the fleet was still sailing towards the Federation, going there to allocate the ownership of the kyber crystal. And Lin Chen still stayed in his room every day to draw detailed drawings according to the specifications of the Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer in his mind, and was ready to return to the Azure Star to personally take charge of the manufacture of new warships. As for the Third Combined Fleet, it is now on the right track and has a lot of sailing experience, so there is no need for him to participate in the Third Combined Fleet. As time went by, when he was about to arrive at the Federation, Lin Chen had already drawn the blueprint of the Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer vividly. At this moment, a pile of blueprints of the Imperial Class I-Type Star Destroyer lay quietly on the table in front of him. The Imperial Star Destroyer was triangular in shape, like a huge dagger, and the huge hull of 1600 exuded a sense of awe and fear. At the same time, this kind of Star Destroyer will live in the future and will sail in the vast starry sky, resolve disputes, and make all enemies shudder at the thought of confronting this kind of Star Destroyer. Imperial I-Class Star Destroyer Technical Specifications. Length: 1,600 meters MGLT, 60 MGLT maximum atmospheric speed, 975 kilometers per hour. Engine type: KTY Destroyer ion engine, Gemin, -4 ion engine, for emergency use. Hyperdrive class. Class 2, primary. Class 8, backup, equipment. Generator, ionization reactor shield. Generator diversion shield. 2 sensor system. Long-range sensor targeting system. Tractor-beam targeting array armament. Mainly turbo-laser cannons, ion cannons and laser cannons. Combat units. 0 consumables. 0 can be used as capital ship, command ship. In other words, the system only awarded a Star Destroyer, and there is nothing like combat units. If you want combat units, you can allocate them yourself, or you can use fan points to exchange for new combat units from the system mall. Lin Chen carefully checked the blueprints of the Imperial I-class Star Destroyer on both sides, and after confirming that they were correct, he solemnly put them away. 5 hours later, the fleet successfully arrived at the Federation. Regarding the issue of how to distribute Kyber crystals, many people tacitly understood. The ones who got the most were the Wang Zhen fleet and the Jianmeng fleet. After all, they were the ones who discovered this place, and they were the strongest. The most speechless thing was that after a series of cooperation, the Wang Zhen fleet and the Jianmeng fleet seemed to have reached a consensus with each other. General Bit said, "Okay, regarding the issue of distributing Kyber crystals, I believe everyone has already prepared for it. Let's take a break today and start the formal distribution tomorrow." Everyone looked very excited. No problem. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 415. The Unfavored Imperial-class Star Destroyer. After an exciting night, the next day, the spoils were officially distributed. The Federation shipyard was now filled with boxes of Kyber crystals. As soon as everyone entered, they all exclaimed, "So many!" It was not very noticeable when they were pulled back again and again, but now that they were all piled together, the space they occupied immediately made countless people's heartbeats accelerate, and even Lin Chen couldn't help but take a second look. Kyber crystals are very useful. Their own super energy can be used for the consumption of spacecraft, for energy attacks of spacecraft, and for defense consumption of spacecraft. This kind of thing should be a consumable, so the more the better. Regarding the statistical issue, the people at the Federation had already made calculations. When they came, the staff immediately took out the data charts that were rushed out overnight and carefully handed them to everyone in turn. This is all the Kyber crystals that have been counted. Lin Chen glanced at it hurriedly, and then said in surprise, "There are so many." This time, the Kyber crystals totaled 40,000 square meters. According to the affiliation of the Wang Zhen fleet, 25% of the ownership will be obtained. The person in charge said, "Yes, this is calculated by the Federation's specialized personnel, and the personnel from Azure Star will check it later." Everyone nodded. Later, they began to ship the Kyber crystals according to their respective assignments. Of course, it was impossible to leave all these things to Lin Chen and others. There were specialized personnel responsible for shipping. During this period, Lin Chen and others were invited by the enthusiastic Federation's Supreme Leader Omar to attend a banquet. They were not strangers at the banquet, and they had been introduced before. Omar, as the Federation's Supreme Leader, was the first to stand up, raised his glass, and said with a smile, "Everyone, cheers for our happy cooperation." Everyone agreed. Afterwards, Omar smiled and said, "Thank you friends from Azure Star. This time, thanks to you. If you have any problems in the future, just let me know. Although our Federation is not as strong as you, it is still no problem for us to help. Today's favor must be repaid, and it is also to consolidate the friendly relations between the two planets." It hit the point. A round of applause rang out. As a human race, everyone does not have any deep hatred. On the contrary, communication is very simple. Everyone also knows deeply that conquest is simple, but it is far less in line with the interests of the human world than cooperation. What's more, facing the vast universe, no one can guarantee whether there will be a civilization more advanced than humans, so it is the wisest choice to keep warm together. General Bit stood up and said, "Well said, we are all human beings, we should work together to explore the universe. At present, the Federation is the closest existence to itself among the civilizations encountered by Azure Star. Everyone has a common language." Another round of dense applause rang out. Everyone can travel through the stars. They understand the meaning of what they said today. It's like an invisible thread pulling a strange destiny, like a silent call to assemble. One human civilization after another gathered around the same group, gathered under the flag of Azure Star. And only Lin Chen understood that this might be a sign that mankind is about to usher in its peak era. After all, the system allowed him to go to the world 1,000 years later, where he learned that humans had indeed created their own glory, destroyed countless non-human civilizations, and their strength became one of the 3 top forces in the Yandronda galaxy. But after the glory, they suffered an embarrassing fate. As time went by, it was already half a month later. The Kyber crystals were distributed, and the fleet began to transport Kyber crystals back and forth from the two planets continuously. During this period, the two sides even built a space signal transmission station to facilitate the communication between the two planets. Until today, the last batch of spacecraft took off, Lin Chen and others waved goodbye to Woma, and this was officially on the way back to the Azure Star. The fleet from the Azure Star shuttled through the universe in a mighty manner, and finally returned to the Azure Star safely. The spacecrafts in the fleet began to return to their respective countries, and the Wangxing fleet all took off and landed at the Empire's shipyard. As soon as Lin Chen got off the spacecraft, he gave Jiangxia and his parents a deep hug. It's good to be back. At this moment, all words are redundant. The atmosphere of joy was pervasive. After all, they were traveling through the vast universe before, unlike going to other countries. No matter what, they were still on the Azure Star. However, the universe was different. Once an accident occurred, the risk of encountering an unexpected event would be very high. Let's go home and talk. Lin Chen and his family left the shipyard, and by the way, he issued his last order in the Third Joint Fleet. All crew members took a month off to reunite with their families. A cheer that seemed to tear the sky rang out in the shipyard. This time when he returned to the Azure Star, Lin Chen began to fully enjoy life, just as a relaxation. After a long time, he almost forgot about the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer. All day long, he was either traveling with Jiangxia or watching movies and shopping together. They were completely a sweet couple. No, it should be an engaged couple who got on the bus in advance because they were in a hurry and did not buy tickets, so now it's time to buy tickets. But time passed quickly, and the good times did not last long. On this day, Lin Chen had just finished breakfast and unexpectedly received a call from Fang Qi, saying that the crew of the Third Joint Fleet had returned from vacation. Lin Chen hung up the phone, and a serious look appeared on his face. The shipyard is located in the heart of the Wangxi Empire, very close to the capital Jinshi, and covers an area of 2,000 square kilometers. Lin Chen and Jiangxia drove all the way to the shipyard. Jiangxia asked in the car, "Are you really going to hand over the fleet?" Lin Chen said, "Well, the fleet now has basic experience, and it's time to return it to others." Jiangxia nodded and said, "What are your plans for the future?" "I designed a battleship and I plan to supervise its construction myself." While Lin Chen and Jiangxia were talking, they entered the meeting room of the shipyard, and then notified all the Legion commanders and the headquarters of the Empire that they had something important to discuss. After the Legion commanders and the headquarters of the Empire arrived, Lin Chen went straight to the topic and had to announce something extremely important. "From today on, I will no longer interfere in all matters of the Third Combined Fleet of the Empire. In addition, I will separate the mobile forces from the Third Combined Fleet, and the tasks of the Third Combined Fleet will be transferred to the Commander's office." What? Everyone was shocked, and then they felt a little happy in their hearts. The time for me to show off has finally come. Yes, I think the time is ripe. Many captains of the fleet have also honed their skills for a long time. Even if I am not here now, they can manage the fleet in an orderly manner. Someone seemed to have pointed out something and said, then, Jiangxia took over the conversation and said, "The Third Combined Fleet is almost full, and the shipyard will continue to build spacecraft. As for which legion will be reorganized into the next fleet, it is the matter of the commander's office." The faces of the legion commanders immediately showed excitement. They all wanted to change to a combined fleet sailing in the vast starry sky after the Third Combined Fleet, commanding warships to turn the alien creatures upside down. Someone else asked, "What about Lin Chen in the future? Will he not go to space?" Lin Chen smiled and said, "I'm going to rest at home and personally supervise the construction of the new battleship I designed." Everyone immediately became very interested in the new battleship that Lin Chen mentioned. Everyone wants a good battleship, not only to show off, but also as a guarantee of military force. Their breathing became rapid, and they hurriedly asked, "The new battleship that you need to personally supervise, could it be larger than a battleship with a diameter of 3,000 meters?" "No, the new battleship is only about 1,600 meters. A spaceship that is only 1,600 meters long is too rubbish. It would be better to just build a giant spaceship like a battleship." Everyone was very puzzled, and could even be described as being quite pessimistic about Lin Chen's new design of the battleship. Chapter 416. I am not alone. Without even looking at the design drawings, they all agreed that the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer was a spacecraft inferior to a battleship. In fact, this is also a normal human condition. After all, the scale of a battleship is 3,000 meters in diameter, while the new battleship mentioned by Lin Chen is only 1,600 meters. Too small. Small means weak strength, and men always like big. And the engineering of the new spacecraft is still very extensive. Each spacecraft project takes a lot of time from finalization, preparation to launch. In addition, once finalized, warships of the same level are often mass-produced, and each warship is expected to serve for decades or even more than 100 years. This will consume a huge amount of resources. Therefore, if there are major problems with the design, the result will be a huge consumption of resources. Lin Chen. Everyone present is not an outsider, and there is absolutely no problem with their origins. Lin Chen no longer concealed anything and said, "I have decided to build this spaceship. Since you are not optimistic, can't I build it for fun?" The scene was speechless. In the end, no one could stop Lin Chen's decision. Even Jiang Mingjuan intervened. Lin Chen still did not change his mind and insisted on supervising the construction of the spacecraft. Everyone had no choice but to keep the word willful in their hearts. Forget it, if he wants to build it for fun, then let him build it for fun. In the following days, another battleship and 3 assault ships were built in the shipyard and handed over to the 3rd Combined Fleet. This time, the 3rd Combined Fleet finally got its full strength as it wished. The 3rd Combined Fleet is still the former Navy's structure with a total of 150,000 people, but it has added many technical talents, such as drivers and repairmen. Most of the former Navy has transformed into a qualified Navy yard for a series of training and learning. The spacecraft organization of the 3rd Combined Fleet of the Wangxian Empire. 6 battleships with a diameter of 3,000 meters, 18 assault ships with a length of 700 meters, Millennium Falcon with a diameter of 32.5 meters, cargo ship and main combat spacecraft. 70. These spacecraft became the first official fleet of the Wangxian Empire, the 3rd Combined Fleet. When the fleet was officially handed over to the 3rd Combined Fleet that day, Jiang Mingjuan came up with a brilliant idea. Recruit the reserve. He immediately prepared an infectious program. The 3rd Corps of the Wangxian Empire will be officially renamed the 3rd Combined Fleet of the Wangxian Empire Space Force. All officers and soldiers will officially become fleet crew members. The military parade on the 1st of next month, which is National Day, will be cancelled. Instead, the establishment ceremony will be broadcast live for free at 9 AM. This is a moment to witness history. Look forward to it. When the news came out, the whole world was in an uproar. Now everyone knows that the Wangxian Empire has a fleet, but now it has announced the 3rd Combined Fleet. What does this mean? Could it be that their spacecraft has reached a scale that can accommodate the 3rd Corps? Awesome. It is worthy at being the Wangxian Empire. The eyes of the whole world immediately focused on the Wangxian Empire, and at the same time, some focused on the Jianming Empire. They both have shipyards, so why hasn't the Jianming Empire made any movement? At this moment, Pussy has been silent since he received the news. This can also demonstrate strength. Pussy sat in the chair for a long time without saying a word. I don't know what he was thinking about. After a long time, he sighed and said, "I'm not alone." The high-level officials of the Jianming Empire who were holding a meeting on the news of the Wangxian Empire. Pussy smiled and said, "You know, since the old man Liu Engumo turned over, our Jianming Empire has not even had a decent opponent. It's too lonely. This is an opponent that needs to be taken seriously. Because another new star in the pretending world is rising. However, Pussy has nothing to fear. Because the Jianming Empire is the strongest, no one will ever shake the position of the Jianming Empire, never." The Minister of Foreign Affairs agreed and said, "That's right, our Jianming Empire is never afraid of any challenge." Pussy said, "Only competition is the foundation of development. Since the Wangxian Empire has demonstrated its strength, we can no longer keep a low profile." Some people didn't react to what the old man Pussy meant, but everyone knew one thing, that is, he was going to show his strength again. However, for this demonstration of strength, everyone is full of confidence. With the experience of turning over, they can ensure that they will never turn over, absolutely not. Pussy said confidently, "Build a brand new battleship belonging to the Jianming Empire. This kind of battleship must not only be a weapon platform, but also be able to perform multiple tasks such as planetary defense, planetary attack and anti-ship attack. It is also a dock and heavy transport aircraft that can provide repairs in space. Now the Jianming Empire urgently needs a brand new battleship to achieve the purpose of demonstrating its strength." After all, the largest battleship of the Jianming Empire is only more than 2,000 meters, which is much smaller than the battleship of the Wangzi Empire, so it must exceed them in size. What's more, now that we already have kyber crystals, we will naturally not worry about the drive problem. That's right, we need a bigger battleship to demonstrate our strength. Everyone agreed with Puxi's opinion. There is no need to be timid in the era of interstellar navigation, and the Jianming Empire has never been stingy about how to demonstrate its strength. Soon, the high-level officials of the Jianming Empire unified their opinions and drew up a plan for a new battleship. The new battleship must have a size of at least 4,000 meters. Finally, Puxi stood up solemnly, and the others seemed to realize something and stood up one after another. "We are the strongest." Well, we are the strongest. Everyone was full of confidence. The Jianming Empire's claim to be a beacon was never given for nothing. They are not only the global overlord, but also the overlord of this galaxy, the overlord of the Andromeda galaxy, and even the overlord of the Virgo star supersystem will be the Jianming Empire. Astronomical data: in the future, the flags of the Jianming Empire will be planted in every corner of the universe. Today, the people of the Wangzi Empire were in extreme shock and did not react for a long time. The Third Legion is gone, and it has become the Third Combined Fleet. There will be a full live broadcast on the 1st of next month. It's so cool. On the internet, major news media, buses and subways, etc. Plus the secret promotion of people with ulterior motives, there are news everywhere about the Wangzi Empire's strength tomorrow. After the people reacted, they were also excited. Wait. Wow, so cool. Will the Empire have 15 combined fleets in the future, and there will be no more Legion numbers? People are looking forward to it, and they can't wait to reach 9 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of next month. Because the live broadcast at the time will definitely be a more interesting and exciting program than the military parade. Chapter 417. I love it. In order to demonstrate its strength and show this time, the Wangzi Empire has also made sufficient preparations. Every day, the Empire spacecrafts are constantly going back and forth, picking up the high-level officials of the affiliated planets, and also going to space to record programs. As time goes by, the time that people have been looking forward to has finally arrived. And the Wangzi Empire has already arranged this show of strength in an orderly manner. On the first day of the month, the live broadcast will start at 9 am. 3.5 billion viewers worldwide. A sexy female host appeared in front of the TV and smiled. "Hello, everyone, the long-awaited moment has finally arrived, but this time the live broadcast method will be more special. Why don't we take a look at how special it is?" The camera in front of the TV turned, and the picture appeared in the shipyard. At this moment, the shipyard has a full 150,000 heroic warriors standing upright, holding weapons and standing firm with resolute faces, like clay sculptures and wooden sculptures, motionless. They are being reviewed by the audience in front of the TV. In the sky, several helicopters are broadcasting the entire process live. After a while, Jiang Minjian appeared from the podium and announced, "I declare that the designation of the Third Army of the Wangzi Empire will be cancelled and changed to the Third Combined Fleet. The fleet commander is Han Yang. Now let the commander of the Third Combined Fleet, Han Yang, give a speech." Han Yang was once the commander of the Third Army and is now the commander of the Third Combined Fleet. His speech was very simple. After saying a series of infectious words, he waved his hand and said loudly, "Everyone aboard." The scene turned again. It turned to the interior of the spaceship, and the photographers who had been prepared for a long time immediately began to work. In front of them was a skilled and experienced spaceship pilot. After a series of starting the spaceship, he said, "The conditions for takeoff have been met." After all the personnel of the fleet boarded the spaceship, the Third Combined Fleet officially took off. They did not fly into space, but flew at a low altitude over the Empire, making the people of the Empire proud. After a while, the fleet that covered the sky and the sun appeared over the cities one after another. Not only did it shock the audience, but it also made the residents of the city flock to the streets and cheer the slogan "Long Live the Empire." There was no panic, only shock, because these spaceships belonged to the Wangzi Empire, and they were the swords that defended the safety of the people and the interests of the Empire. After a while, the live broadcast ended. The whole show was perfect and cool. At this moment, the Wangzi Empire was in high spirits, and many young people were excited and blushed. So cool. My girlfriend cried and wanted to ride a spaceship. If she didn't agree, she would break up. What should I do now? Wow, the Empire spaceships are really exciting. As time went by, The enthusiasm for the formal establishment of the Third Joint Fleet by the Wangzhou Empire slowed down half a month later. But the Wangzhou Empire once again entered a hot development. Because the matter of changing the Second Legion has also come to an end. After drawing lots, it was decided that the next fleet would be the First Joint Fleet. The people of the First Legion were excited. In the future, they would transform into the First Joint Fleet sailing in the universe. This is definitely tall and majestic. Looking at the numbers of those legions, it was simply frustrated. The First Legion was happy, but the other legions were very unhappy, and they didn't know whether they could see the scene they wanted to see in this life. Among them, the Fourth Army was the most upset, especially when they saw the people of the First Army with evil smiles on their faces. They were so angry that they almost took out their guns and shot all these bastards. Liang Shizong was going crazy. The Fourth Army missed the evolution fleet again. What kind of reason is this? It can be said that the Empire created Lin Chen, and Lin Chen created the history of the Empire, but all this is because of his own bull. In the past, the Fourth Army was backward in every way. It was next to the capital and was known as the important place of the capital, so even if it wanted to develop, it couldn't. But now Lin Chen is labeled as the Fourth Army. Doesn't he want to think about the situation of the Fourth Army? Depressed, unwilling, and alcoholism. It has become Liang Shizong's normal state. Lin Chen also heard about Liang Shizong's recent affairs. After thinking about it, he felt that he was wrong, so he quickly put down the things at hand and hurried to visit him. When Lin Chen pushed the door and entered Liang Shizong's office, he was immediately stimulated by the strong smell of alcohol and his mind was dazed. While greeting, he sat opposite Liang Shizong. "You are building a spaceship, why are you here?" "Look at you, Uncle Liang, are you serious?" "You don't understand." Lin Chen was quite respectful to Liang Shizong, and said, "Why should I not understand? It's just that you can't get over it. It's just a spaceship, and it's just 100,000 people." Liang Shizong smiled bitterly with a full smell of alcohol. "Can I still see it?" Lin Chen said, "I can see it. I'm building a spaceship. Building 3 spaceships can accommodate the 100,000 people of the Fourth Legion. When you have a spaceship, I will talk to the commander's office and it will be no problem to open a separate place." Liang Shizong was very dissatisfied and said, "Just that 1,600-meter small spaceship. If you want to drive, you should drive a big spaceship. Will you be laughed at for driving that 1,600-meter small spaceship?" Lin Chen said with a serious face. "What small spaceship?" "That's a Star Destroyer. It's much stronger than a battleship with a diameter of 3,000 meters. The two are not in the same league at all. In the past, a battleship with a diameter of 3,000 meters was definitely a battleship with unprecedented strength, but it was far inferior to the symbol of military power such as the Star Destroyer." Then, Lin Chen took out the drawings of the Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer that he brought with him. The drawings with specific data were not brought with him. Even if he brought them, the other party would not understand them. The drawings that were opened only showed the shape and specific parameters of the Star Destroyer. Liang Shizong just took a look and woke up immediately. He said excitedly, "This spaceship is." The triangular hull was attracting his attention. Lin Chen said, "This is an Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer. It has better performance than a battleship. Strictly speaking, 3 ships can form a battle formation, and its power is better than the sum of all kinds of ships that form a fleet." Liang Shizong immediately became excited and his attitude immediately changed dramatically. It seems that everyone is wrong. The Star Destroyer built by Lin Chen himself is not as rubbish as everyone imagines. Once he has this Star Destroyer, he will definitely be the object of envy, jealousy and hatred of all the Legion commanders. Liang Shizong asked, "Oh, I love it so much, when can it be built?" Lin Chen did not speak, but just stretched out 2 fingers. Chapter 418. It's been a long time since I've flicked over, and I feel itchy all over. Liang Shizong's face changed, and he thought of something. He seemed to remember that Pussy and Mitten of Jianwang Empire had the same scene. They loved it and stretched out their fingers, but were told that it would take 500 years. Could it be that? He immediately became suspicious and asked, 200 years? Lin Chen was stunned for a moment and said in surprise, "It is expected to take 2 years at the latest." Liang Shizong breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Okay, I can wait." After 2 years, he will have his own spaceship. What is there to be afraid of? In fact, he said that he could wait, but in fact, he did not show any sign of being able to wait in the days that followed. Every 3 or 5 days, Liang Shizong would stay at the shipyard for half a day in the name of visiting Lin Chen. Liang Shizong looked at the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer, which had already taken shape, with some dissatisfaction, and said, "Why is it so slow?" Lin Chen glanced at him and said, "It's only been a month, and the progress today has greatly exceeded my expectations." Liang Shizong sighed and said, "I was too impatient, but there is nothing I can do. I heard that yesterday the First Army, oh no, the First Combined Fleet has received another batch of Millennium Falcons sent by Xinhua Star in accordance with regulations. Previously, there were Coatl aliens attacking the Azure Star, but the Coatl aliens were driven away. They ran to Xinhua Star, where the Empire's fleet happened to be carrying out its mission, and eliminated the Coatl aliens by the way, and established a cooperation with that planet to jointly manufacture spacecraft. According to regulations, the Wangxi Empire will own 50% of the spacecraft. Therefore, every once in a while, Xinhua Star will send a batch of Millennium Falcons according to the contract. It's no wonder that Liang Shizong is so anxious. Another colleague has driven a spacecraft." Ling King said, "Don't be in a hurry, the speed is so fast. After all, the shipyard also has the task of building spaceships. It's good that Lin Chen can allocate 1/3 of the scientific and technological personnel to build the Empire-class I-type Star Destroyer." Liang Shizong patted Lin Chen's shoulder and said earnestly, "I'll rely on you in the future." After that, he left without looking back. In the following days, it was rare to be quiet. But it seems that after being quiet for a long time, there'll always be people who can't hold back and want to make a wave of mods. For example, the Jianmeng Empire. Their new spaceship has started construction, with a giant spaceship of 4,300 meters. At this time, the self-confidence of the Jianmeng Empire has swelled again, because they haven't overturned for a long time, and they feel that their whole body is itching unscrupulously. After seeing the giant being built by the shipyard, even if it has not been completed, they all agree that the strength of the Jianmeng Empire can no longer be kept low-key. Before, even the garbage like the Wangxi Empire began to show its strength, clearly not taking the free and beautiful Jianmeng Empire seriously. In this case, let's show the invincible style of the Jianmeng Empire and let the world know who is the global overlord and who is the overlord of this galaxy group. So, on the same day, the Jianmeng Empire held a press conference. At the press conference, Pu Si announced confidently, "The Jianmeng Empire is currently building a brand new giant battleship. This battleship will surpass the past and will be a real air fortress." At the end, he simply put a 3D picture of the battleship in his mouth. The 3D picture effect shows a lifelike battleship. Although this is just a data-synthesized image, the current reporters are still shocked by the data of the spacecraft at a glance. The rectangular hull exudes a streamlined design sense, which seems to be born specifically to show strength. There is an illusion that it is a symbol of the Jianmeng Empire's military power. Battleship. Freedom God Mothership. Specifications: 4,300 meters weapons, 20 energy turrets, 12 plasma cannon launch towers, 100 missile silos. Combat units. Can carry 10 dangerous wanderers and a large number of small and medium-sized battleships at a time. The Freeman Mothership will carry the symbol of the Jianmeng Empire's dominance. It is a heavy weapon platform that can shoulder planetary attacks, planetary defenses, and anti-ship operations. It can also perform multiple tasks, planetary defense, planetary attacks, and anti-ship attacks. It is also a space station that provides repair docks and heavy transport aircraft. This is the first multifunctional ship in human history. Just like the aircraft carriers of the naval era, its role can be seen. There was a sound of sucking air at the press conference. Many reporters swallowed their mouths, and their inner horror reached an unprecedented level. Before, because of the show of the strength of the Wangxi Empire, the whole world generally believed that the status of the Jianmeng Empire had changed, but now it seems that the style of the Jianmeng Empire remains the same. Awesome. It is worthy at being the world's hegemon. The speed of developing and building spacecraft is worthy at being a model of the world's hegemony. And this news instantly infected countless Jianmeng people. Wow, are we already so strong? The title of Lighthouse is never given for nothing. Ha! With the Mothership of Liberty, won't our Jianmeng Empire be invincible? Our warship is the largest in human history, and only we have the ability to build such a miraculous warship. Once upon a time, the extremely confident Jianmeng people experienced frequent rollovers, which led to their inferiority complex in their hearts, and even a tendency to not be able to raise their heads. But now it seems that there is no need at all. Because they are building the strongest warship in human history, the Mothership of Liberty. Because they are extremely proud Jianmeng people. And all that happened was under the control of Pussy. He knew that the strength of the Jianmeng Empire could no longer be kept low-key. In order to meet the needs of the people and to build the Mothership of Liberty as soon as possible, Pussy had to notify the person in charge of the shipyard, Metzen, to bring the information of the Mothership of Liberty to come here. Time was running out, and the shipyard manager Metzen hurried over with a briefcase. When he pushed the door open, he found that the conference room was full of high-ranking officials of the Empire. If nothing else, you should have heard about our press conference. Now the people and the world are eager to witness the birth of the great miracle of the Liberty Man. Pussy explained the purpose of calling him in detail, and his words were nothing more than expressing the need to shorten the construction period and build the hotly discussed Liberty Man mothership in advance. Metzen thought about it and said, "It's not a big problem." "Very good, we must build the spacecraft as quickly as possible." "No problem, we can remove the outer shell, or directly cover some unnecessary places with canvas, so that the 2-year construction period can be reduced to about 3 months. The atmosphere on the scene suddenly changed. Everyone. ? Although Metzen was still speaking non-stop, everyone present had already had a picture of what a spaceship without an outer shell looked like, and how it could sail in the universe. Is that a spaceship or a flatbed sightseeing car? Will the warriors of the Empire be required to wear spacesuits and shoot weapons when a space war breaks out in the future? Oh, yes, the warriors in spacesuits must be fixed on the chairs, otherwise they will float away. Pussy's face immediately darkened, and he shouted at the door. "Fuck, someone bring a few buckets of ice water, pour a few buckets of ice water on this idiot Metzen to wake him up." Soon, a group of burly men helped Metzen down and poured ice water on him. Splash! Several buckets of ice water poured down from the top of his head, causing Metzen to gasp in pain. Yes, now he was obedient. After consultation, the construction period of the Liberty God mothership was forcibly shortened to 1 year without affecting its use, and with the participation of scientific research personnel. Chapter 419. Conspiracy against Azure Star. The Jianmeng Empire was still looking forward to the official birth of their Freedom God spaceship, which would cause global exclamations. Meanwhile, their press conference seemed to have turned into a hurricane, sweeping across the entire Azure Star in a very short period of time. As soon as the news came out, the world was boiling. It was really too boring recently. There was no alien invasion, no monster invasion, which made the humans on Azure Star a little uncomfortable and ditchy. For a while, the whole world was talking about the Freedom God mothership of the Jianmeng Empire. The news also reached the Wangxin Empire. This caused many concerns among the top leaders of the empire. Given the usual nature of the Jianmeng Empire, once they had a more powerful warship, they would probably show off to the whole world again. What should we do? This is the question that the top leaders are currently considering unanimously. At present, they urgently need a spaceship that can fight against the mothership of the Jianmeng Empire in the future. A battleship with a diameter of 3,000 meters is very large, but it is obviously slightly inferior to the mothership that the Jianmeng Empire is building. Should we go to find Lin Chen? No, he is building a 1,600-meter battleship recently. It is too small to compete with the new spaceship of the Jianmeng Empire. Everyone was discouraged when they thought of the small battleship that Lin Chen had mentioned before. How can a 1,600-meter battleship compete with a 4,300-meter mothership? In the end, they had no choice but to work the shipyard to speed up the production of battleships. Since the quality was not good enough, they were prepared to defeat the opponent in terms of quantity. In fact, as far as Lin Chen was concerned, he had no such worrying mentality at all. Others did not understand the power of the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer, but he himself knew the horror of this battleship. Because it is a symbol of force. However, when Lin Chen heard the news about the Jianmeng Empire at this moment, he was a little stunned standing there. Lin Chen was speechless. Don't they have a Statue of Liberty? Why is there another Liberty Man now? After a while, Lin Chen glanced at the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer being manufactured. It seems interesting in the future. I hope their spacecraft will not be put into service at the same time as this Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer, which is a symbol of force and power, otherwise the Jianmeng Empire will definitely overturn again. In the days that followed, the world was finally quiet. However, each force did not become negative, but instead showed a trend of vigorous development. Not enough local resources. The universe is so big that as long as you find any habitable planet, you can get a steady stream of resources. Even if you were afraid of danger, you can go to Pandora to mine. Now the opportunity is in front of you, and whether you seize it depends on the decision maker's choice. Obviously, under the premise of competition, no force on the Azure Star is willing to be a salted fish, especially recently the Wang's Empire and the Jianmeng Empire have put a lot of pressure on them. For a time, all the spacecrafts on the Azure Star were dispatched, swarming everywhere like bees to find valuable resources in their eyes. As time went by, more than half a year had passed. During this period, both the Jianmeng Empire and the Wang's Empire's new warships have made great progress. Today, Lin Chen is still building the Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer. The whole process was built in a closed way. Even the top leaders of the Empire knew little about the progress of this new battleship, let alone its performance. Only a few people knew about it. The construction speed is very fast. Jingxi appeared behind Lin Chen at some point, looking at the semi-finished product in front of her with a faint smile and a slightly horrified look. She knew about this Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer at first. Looking at the blueprint gave her a feeling of invincibility, but she didn't see it with her own eyes at all. This aggressive triangular battleship has a strong visual impact, with the momentum of force and power. Both its performance and appearance have reached a perfect trend. Even any battleship will be eclipsed in front of it. Lin Chen was stunned for a moment, and then smiled and said, "Yes, it is quite fast, and it exceeds my budget." The Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer, which Lin Chen had expected to take 2 years to build completely, is actually not as complicated as he imagined, nor does it consume as many resources as he imagined. And at the current manufacturing speed, it only takes 1 year to complete an Imperial-class I-type Star Destroyer. This is still done when there is insufficient experience in scientific research. If you become more experienced in the future, it will be time to finalize it. Afterwards, Lin Chen asked again, "Has anything big happened recently?" Jingxi said, "It's still the same. Spaceships from all over the world are heading to the depths of the starry sky to perform missions." Lin Chen frowned and asked, "No one is left behind?" Jingxi said, "No, why leave it behind?" Lin Chen was stunned for a moment, always feeling that he had overlooked something, but he couldn't remember what was wrong for a while. At this moment, the spaceships of Azure Star are like a group of bees leaving their nests, scattered all over the vast starry sky. Even if they didn't find any valuable planets, just flying is the most valuable mission, because going deeper into the starry sky will continuously expand the star map and include galaxies one by one into the sphere of influence of Azure Star. But no one knows that a new storm has appeared in the depths of the starry sky. A conspiracy against Azure Star has begun. Because a captain of the Cobalt aliens who invaded the Azure Star had escaped by chance, but he did not give up revenge. The captain of the Cobalt alien had been hiding in the dark, using the instruments of the spacecraft that had been shot down to observe the Azure Star, ready to take revenge. Until he confirmed from the instrument that there was a suspected super-energy substance on the Azure Star, he knew that the opportunity for revenge had come. Although he did not know how much of this super-energy substance there was, and did not know the current situation of the Azure Star, and even the configuration of the Azure Star fleet was unclear. But he knew too well what the super-energy substance represented. This thing would attract countless forces to compete for it, and all he had to do was to spread the news. The captain of the Cobalt alien first ran to the world of the Tentacle civilization, preparing to let the Tentacle people kill the Azure Star. However, when she heard that she was going to destroy the Azure Star, the queen of the tentacle monster exclaimed, "What, that Azure Star again?" Scared. What happened is still vivid in my mind. The Invincible fleet lost contact near the planet called Azure Star. It is not difficult to guess that the Invincible fleet is gone. Although the Tentacle Man also has a deep hatred for Azure Star, even though that planet is exciting super-energy substances, as the Queen of Tentacles, she knows that the Invincible fleet of the Tentacle Man is so powerful that it is almost a sideways existence in the universe except for not daring to provoke the Protoss and the Zerg. Such a strong fleet was destroyed by the Azure Star, and now they're still thinking about revenge. Are they going to die? However, this also reminds the Queen of Tentacles that the opportunity for revenge has come. If things cannot be solved by force, then use intelligence to solve them. Later, with the two civilizations of the Cobalt Man and the Tentacle Man secretly fueling the flames, some civilizations in the depths of the universe also received news about Azure Star one after another, and they were immediately in a state of extreme shock. Is it true? Humans are so strong. There are countless races and civilizations in the vast starry sky. After receiving the news, they all felt incredible. You should know that the human race is a widely distributed large group in the universe. Perhaps because of the balance of the universe's rules, these races are all weak, so once a human planet is discovered, it will inevitably be slaughtered or become slaves. Just because humans are too weak. However, now I heard that there is a crazy human planet that first wiped out the invincible fleet of the tentacle people, and then beat the fleet of the coatl aliens into a dog. I can't believe it. Although the super energy material makes countless civilizations in the depths of the starry sky jealous, many forces did not act rashly because of the extremely powerful blue star in the news, because they knew that there was a very strong force that would take action to rob it. This force is called the Trade Union, which belongs to the Andromeda Galaxy and is a force that cannot be underestimated. As the name says, they are a group of organizations doing trade. They are not good or bad, but just have different positions. When they heard that there was a human planet in the depths of the starry sky that actually hid super energy materials, the greedy Trade Union tried to use force to solve the problem. Chapter 420. The Trade Alliance blocks Azure Planet. I heard that the human world has super energy materials. The Trade Union was immediately tempted, because the human race is not worthy of enjoying the materials in the universe. It is the greatest gift for them to live to this day. However, the Trade Union did not act rashly, but collected some information about the Azure Star. I was dumbfounded. Where are the coordinates of the Azure Star? Finally, they found the person behind the spread of the news of the Azure Star. After some investigation, they found the coordinates of the Azure Star and very little information. It can be said that most of the content of this information is the coordinates, and apart from that, there is probably only news that the other party has a fleet. These are enough. For a big force like the Trade Union, only the coordinates of the other party are needed. The Trade Governor enjoys a very high status in the Trade Union, and each Trade Governor has a prominent position in the vast starry sky. He prepared and mobilized a large number of combat units from the Trade Union headquarters. A total of 100 battleships with a size of more than 1,500 meters, 200 cruisers under 1,500 meters, 300 destroyers less than 1,000 meters. It even carried hundreds of fighter planes. Such a luxurious fleet is enough to support victory in any war under the starry sky, let alone a mere human world. Even if it is strong, how strong can it be? Before setting off, the Trade Governor was full of confidence and sent messages to many civilizations in the name of the Trade Union in the vast starry sky. The human race is not worthy of enjoying super energy substances. For the development of the universe, the Trade Union will take away the super energy substances of the Azure Star according to legal procedures. This is an excuse for blatant plunder. For the greedy Trade Union, this is a method they've always been good at. They will show a timid attitude in the face of top forces, such as the Protoss and the Zerg, but now they are about to plunder the resources of the human race, a garbage race. What's so scary? As long as they go, they will beat the human race. Blind self-confidence makes it seem that the fleet sent by the Trade Union will never miss this good opportunity to show off its power, and is not afraid of making things worse. The news spread to all civilizations in the star region deep in the starry sky. As soon as the news came out, all the civilized worlds in this star region immediately sent spaceships to join in the fun, or to beat the fallen dog. The Trade Union was beating the human race in front and eating meat, and they could just drink soup in the back. After all, this blue star was different from other human worlds and was a world with power that could not be underestimated. For a time, the powerful civilizations in this star region would send out fleets, and some weak civilizations would send out a few spaceships to follow that fleet of the Trade Union to the vicinity of the blue star to do big things. With the appearance of ships one after another, the space under this vacuum state is already full of warships of various shapes and sizes. They are one in front and one behind. In front is the Trade Union fleet, and in the back is the sightseeing fleet of many civilizations. There are about 1,500 large and small ships in total, occupying a large space. At this time, the Governor of Trade said, "It's almost done, set off, target Blue Star." The dense fleet began to move, heading towards the coordinates of the Blue Star with the same goal. Such a huge lineup no longer shuttles between various galaxies. After a long time, they successfully entered the Sun Star and gradually approached the Azure Star. The Trade Governor stood in front of the window and looked at the Azure Star, saying, "Is this the Azure Star? It is indeed a beautiful and habitable planet. Notify the fleet to start." An adjutant stepped down to execute the notification order. The Trade Union can occupy a place in the vast starry sky, and naturally they have their own abilities. The fleet of the trade union sent powerful warships to fly around the Azure Star, firmly blocking every area where the Azure Star's spacecraft went out, preparing to block all spacecraft leaving the planet. They also used the Azure Star as the center to emit waves, forming an invisible large net, interrupting all external signals of the Azure Star, so as to prevent other helpers from calling for help. Obviously, the trade union cooperated so skillfully, and almost without any hesitation, they completed the action in the shortest time, which proved that this kind of thing had been done many times before. Doing this is to prepare to trap the Azure Star to death. Whether it is orbital bombing or ground landing, the trade union has the final say next. After a while, the governor of trade suddenly got good news. Logically speaking, since the fleet of the trade union has already blockaded the Azure Star, the human spacecraft should come out of the planet to negotiate, or start fighting directly if there is a disagreement, but now there is not a single hair of the other party's spacecraft. Is it that the other party's fleet is not on the Azure Star? This is really good news. Attacking this planet does not require any effort. The governor of trade looked out the window and said confidently, "Wait for good news. Our landing troops will capture the leader of the human race and force them to hand over the super energy material." After a while, landing ships carrying a large number of combat robots and soldiers flew out of the fleet and headed towards the Azure Star. This is to prepare to directly use ground troops to capture the leaders of the human race. Azure Star at this moment. The top leaders of countries around the world are filled with a solemn atmosphere. Because the Space Observatory discovered a large number of spacecraft of unknown origin in the orbit of Azure Star, suspected to have come with ill intentions, and directly blocked Azure Star in a regional manner. The countries were angry and roared. How did it appear? Why did our Space Observatory send a message only now? No way, the spacecraft of unknown origin appeared mysteriously, and it is suspected that it used space drive to enter our galaxy in a way that cannot be discovered at all, and it is expected that the opponent's landing ship will enter the atmosphere in 2 hours. The staff of the Space Observatory was also helpless. If it was a group of meteorites, it would be fine, and it could be observed, but for things like spacecraft, since the opponent can appear on the Azure Star, it must have the technology to exceed the speed of light. But in short, it is certain that the opponent is not a good person. Forget it, sound the alarm. After a while, the alarm sounded in all countries of the Azure Star. When the people of the entire planet heard this familiar sound, they immediately became energetic. Here they come. This alarm sound is so pleasant. Countless people were so excited that they couldn't help themselves. Finally, aliens came to invade again. However, people did not realize the seriousness of the appearance of aliens this time. And countries around the world were also in a mess. It was embarrassing. Because there was no warship on the Azure Star now, they all ran happily into the depths of the starry sky. There are quite a few semi-finished spacecrafts on the Azure planet right now, but they are completely useless. Hurry up and contact the spacecraft to come back. It was even more embarrassing. The signal could not contact the fleet, and even countries around the world had the same situation. At this moment, at the emergency meeting of the Wang's Empire, Jiang Minjiwan said solemnly, "Now the countries around the world are in the same situation as us. They can't contact the fleet, and even the signal can't be sent out. It is speculated that the alien spacecraft has blocked us and prevented the Azure planet from sending out external signals." The Minister of Foreign Affairs thought of a wonderful idea and smiled. "Should we go to Kepler now? I have sent people there, but it will take at least 5 days to build a signal base station there. There has been a proposal to build a signal base station on Kepler. Construction has been going on there, otherwise a large signal base station would not be enough to be built so quickly. What should we do now? Delay time. Fight, drive out the opponent's landing troops first." Halfway through his words, Jiang Minjiwan thought of Lin Chen. With them chase and ground troops equipped with energy weapons, the enemy's landing troops will have sufficient confidence to attack as long as they enter the atmosphere. But after a quick glance, he did not see Lin Chen. Jiang Minjiwan asked in a deep voice, "Why didn't my son-in-law come?" The Minister of the Interior whispered, "Lin Chen is still building a spaceship, and it seems to be about to be completed, so he said he has no time to come to the meeting." Jiang Minjiwan said, "Forget it, let's not talk about him. Even if a battleship of more than 1,000 meters is built, it can't be relied on. Now the most urgent task is to dispatch ground forces to prepare to annihilate the enemy's ground forces." Chapter 421. Beaten like a dog. I never thought that a warship could play a decisive role. Because it doesn't conform to common sense. In fact, it's not just Jiangmin Jiwan who thinks so, almost everyone has the same general idea. Unless the number of warships can reach a certain considerable amount, there may be a practical effect. Just one, isn't that just delivering food? Later, no one thought about Lin Chen's new warship that was about to be completed, but discussed a strategy to deal with the enemy. Time is running out, and a battle plan was drawn up. For a time, the army of the Wangxi Empire began to take large-scale actions, rushing to the place where the landing ship of unknown origin was about to land. And all countries in the world are the same, and they have begun large-scale military operations. However, the Jianming Empire is obviously much worse. Their people are a group of freedom-loving idiots. The more they're asked to leave, the less they will leave. Like idiots, it seems that going against the official has become one of the pleasures of life. It is expected that the alien landing force will land in Aris in 2 hours. They were told to evacuate in an orderly manner like the Wangxi Empire, but they did not learn anything. Trampling, crowding, and provocations happened too many times, which slowed down the evacuation. At this time, the major exits of Aris, which was about to be attacked, were crowded with citizens. They crowded each other, which slowed down the speed of leaving the city. As proud Jianming people, why should they let others go first? I don't accept it. The order was in chaos. As a last resort, Pussy had to stand up to stabilize people's hearts. His figure appeared in major news media and on the projection screens on major buildings. Important report, please don't panic, our Jianming Empire, as the global hegemon, has full confidence to wipe out the aliens, because we have the free god mothership that will be put into service soon, and the Jianming cannon. Now please evacuate the city in an orderly manner. In short, how to make people not panic, do it. The news kept on being broadcast. Originally, Pussy meant to let the people not panic, there was enough time to evacuate the city. But the situation changed when it came to the people who were preparing to evacuate. They were not panicking, that's right, not panicking at all. Yes, we have the Jianming cannon. How can we be afraid of a few aliens? Didn't that old man Pussy say before that the Liberty God mothership is the best of mankind? I might as well believe that old man Pussy again. Go home and wait for good news. Only idiots retreat. They choose a group of cowards who escaped from the city. Countless Jianming people once again surged with infinite confidence. After Pussy's reminder, many people turned a deaf ear to the retreat. Some people who were preparing to escape from the city returned the same way. Those Jianming people who escaped were regarded as cowards and a shame for Jianming people. Because their Liberty God mothership is about to be completed and put into service, when the aliens blockading the Blue Star are just a bunch of garbage. Under the powerful firepower of the Liberty God mothership, they will definitely turn into cosmic garbage. What's more, there is a terrifying weapon like the Jianming cannon. So what are you afraid of? Aliens will die if they come. Evacuate the city. No need. We, the proud Jianming people, are not afraid of any evil aliens. Although the officials of the Jianming Empire are still calling on the people to evacuate, in a short while, the citizens return to where they came from. Pussy and other senior officials were speechless after receiving the news. A bunch of idiots. What on earth are in their heads? They told them not to panic and evacuate in an orderly manner, but they went back with a healer. However, the slap in the face came like a tornado, so fast that the people of Aris were caught off guard. 2 hours later, the landing ship of the trade union arrived in Aris and launched an attack immediately. Under the powerful energy attack, a large area was bombarded into ruins, and then the landing ship of the trade union began to deploy combat robots and warriors. They can be described as them. The attack and appearance of these alien life forms immediately caught the people of Aris off guard. How come the aliens came so quickly? Where are our weapons? Although they kept praying in their hearts, the city was already in chaos. For the existence of the trade union, which dominates the vast starry sky, not to mention slaughtering a human city, even slaughtering the entire planet has been done before. Under their continuous killing, the city of Aris has lost its former prosperity. Mom, aliens are coming. Where is the damn Jianming cannon of Pussy? Woohoo, I want to leave the city, I want to leave the city. The proud Jianming people immediately became cowardly Jianming people, and they swarmed to the entrance of the city like headless flies. But it was useless. In a very short time, the city was occupied by the landing troops of the trade union. Just when the citizens were desperate, the combat units deployed by the Jianming Empire also arrived at the designated points. Two Jianweng cannons locked the sky, fighter planes took off, troops entered the city, and the ground began to tremble slightly, as if there was a slight earthquake. Immediately afterwards, the shaking became stronger. It was the dangerous wanderers who arrived. All the dangerous wanderers of the Jianweng Empire were dispatched, a total of 10. Its shocking body gave the refugees in the city hope to survive. That's our Mecha, its dangerous wanderer, we're saved. The appearance of 10 dangerous wanderers immediately attracted countless cheers from the refugees in the city. No one could understand the mood at this moment better than them. It was a kind of hope of survival from despair. Soon, the combat units deployed by the Jianmeng Empire started a fierce exchange of fire with the combat units of the trade union. An 80-meter-high dangerous wanderer ran quickly in the city of Arras, knocked down many buildings, and appeared near a landing ship of the trade union. The dangerous wanderer punched a huge hole in the 300-meter-long landing ship. Other dangerous wanderers also started to kill the combat units of the trade union. What aliens, what trade unions, are not enough for them to fight. Even the energy attacks launched by the other side are not enough to penetrate the giant shield made of super-hard chromium carried by the dangerous wanderer. The scene immediately underwent a shocking reversal. The ground landing troops have become less of a concern. At the beginning, the Trade Alliance was ready to use powerful equipment to capture the human leader alive. In fact, the ground landing troops just now really beat the human civilians like dogs, chasing them to nowhere. But when humans reacted, they immediately turned around and beat the Trade Alliance into a fool. In the final analysis, although the Trade Alliance occasionally robbed some weak civilizations, most of the time they were engaged in trade of buying low and selling high, which led to a characteristic of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. But the Blue Star is different. To this day, it has developed step by step through the baptism of war. People fight against each other, and people fight against aliens, which has led to the extremely advanced development of military power. So it doesn't seem strange that the Jianmeng Empire beat the Trade Alliance's ground landing troops into dogs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 422. Offending all forces on Azure Star. At this moment, the trade union's ground landing force was frustrated and immediately retreated. The news said that the fleet of this planet had not returned. It was thought that the planet without the protection of the fleet would be manipulated at will, but now it seems that it is completely wrong. How did that 80-meter mecha do it? Is this really a human planet? Even the strength of an advanced planet is only so terrifying. This is the first time I have seen a human planet with such terrifying strength. Immediately, the trade union's ground landing force felt fear. After weighing it again and again in their hearts, they felt that it was not worth it, so they began to flee back to the landing ship and take off to evacuate. Swoosh, 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 the landing force of the trade union came quickly and fled quickly. But the human camp obviously would not let go of any force that dared to invade the Azure Star. The fighter planes in the air of the Jianmeng Empire launched an attack in an attempt to intercept. The two Jianmeng cannons that had been prepared long ago were deployed, and the huge barrels with a caliber of dozens of meters were flashing a cold light under the sunlight. An officer looked out over the battlefield and gave orders in time, saying, "Load the Kyber crystals." Loading completed. Then the two tables of Jianmeng cannons with a diameter of several dozen meters began to absorb the energy of the Kyber crystals, and began to swallow and spit out a ball of energy visible to the naked eye at the muzzles. Jianmeng cannons fire. Two dazzling energy beams gushed out from the Jianmeng cannons. The reason why these two energy beams were able to gather energy in a short time was thanks to the consumables such as Kyber crystals. By extracting the energy of the Kyber crystals themselves, the Jianmeng cannon's attack was achieved. The energy beams were very fast. In less than a breath, they had already penetrated the sky. Even the people below did not need telescopes at all, and they could clearly see the two beams in the sky. That was the attack of the Jianmeng cannon. Immediately afterwards, the attack from the Jianmeng cannon quickly hit the target, causing the energy shields of the 5 Trade Federation landing ships to be shattered in an instant, and then the landing ships were turned into a ball of powder and disappeared from the world forever. Seeing this scene, the trade union soldiers in the landing ship were horrified and said incoherently, "Impossible, humans absolutely cannot have such strong strength." Shocked. Looking at the world, although the human race is a large race with a wide distribution, its strength is generally not very good. There has not even been a human planet that can be valued by the civilization deep in the starry sky. Therefore, the human race is considered one of the lowest races under the starry sky, and there are many derogatory names such as two-legged sheep. But now the strength shown by this human planet is too strong. And this has further prompted many landing ships that were not hit to quickly escape from the blue star. There was not much time left, and the Jianmeng Empire drove away the landing ships of the trade union. But the Jianmeng Empire was not happy at all. Because the city of Aris was gone. In less than an hour, there were more than 1 million casualties. This was a tragedy comparable to the period of monster invasion. The Jianmeng Empire was not sad, but in a mess. Countless demonstrators appeared in the capital of Jianmeng, and once again shouted various slogans, as if going against the authorities had become a culture of the Jianmeng Empire. Puces, old ghost, get out. The culprit must come out and make amends for the city of Alas. What the old man Puces said is bullshit. Listening to the waves of people outside, Puces and others felt a burning pain on their faces. Puces. The high-level officials of the Jianmeng Empire. We had strongly called on the people to evacuate in an orderly manner before, but it was the group of idiots in Alas who insisted on going against us. Now a big tragedy has happened, it's none of our business. They deserve it. As a last resort, Puces had to stand up again and use the beautification methods he was always good at, which ended this farce. Afterwards, Puces and others all showed solemn expressions on their faces. Although the aliens' ground landing troops have been driven away now, the aliens still block the Azure Star. Once the other party uses orbital bombing, the consequences will be unimaginable. And at this moment, hundreds of Mechas that had just finished fighting were hovering in the airspace of the Wangxian Empire. Except for a few trade union landing ships that managed to escape, the rest were hit. Several other planned locations on other blue stars also landed and drove out the trade union landing ships. Blue Star gained a brief peace. But no one was careless, because there was still a sword hanging over their heads. If the potential threat was not eliminated, they would not be able to sleep or eat. At this moment, in the orbit of Blue Star, in a command ship in the trade union's blockade of Blue Star, the governor of trade was waiting for good news from the ground forces. But in the end, instead of waiting for good news, the ground landing forces were beaten out by the humans of Blue Star like dogs. The governor of trade was not without worries. If it was not the human race that dominated this planet, the trade union would leave immediately and would not make any loss-making deals, but it was just a human planet. What was there to be afraid of? The governor of trade said with a gloomy face. Since the ground landing troops are not working, then use force to force humans to hand over the super energy material, conduct space strikes, and then contact this Azure Star. Although the strength of this planet exceeded expectations, the warships and spaceships of this planet have never appeared from beginning to end, which further confirms the speculation that the spaceship is most likely not on the planet. At present, since the opponent's spaceship is not there, the fleet of the trade union can sit back and relax and attack the Azure Star from outer space at the right time and any place. After a while, the fleet of the trade union launched an orbital bombardment on the Azure Star. The energy attack was launched from the fleet's spaceship. For a time, the Azure Star suffered heavy losses after being hit from outer space. In a very short period of time, more than 50 cities in various countries in the world were reduced to ruins, and a large number of civilians died tragically. All this came too suddenly, so suddenly that it took only 1 second to hear the bad news. Even 2 cities in the Wangxian Empire suffered an unexpected disaster. Without any signs, 2 cities suddenly became ruins. Mom, I'm scared. Save me, is there anyone? Countries around the world were deeply saddened, because the disaster had presented a heartbreaking picture. In the ruins, there were helpless little girls crying and holding women's bodies, and there were also people buried in the ruins struggling helplessly. After receiving the news, the leaders of various countries, as if they had agreed in advance, almost said at the same time, "Do everything possible to rescue all the victims as quickly as possible." Then, their eyes seemed to be dyed red, emitting bloodthirsty light and smashing their offices. There is no doubt that the trade union has offended all the forces of Azure Star at once. This time Azure Star was really angry. But the trade union was still in blind self-confidence, thinking that as long as the external signals of Azure Star were blocked, the other party could be squeezed at will, and the human race could be forced to hand over all the resources the trade union wanted. 10 minutes had passed since the orbital strike, and the trade governor believed that everything was under control. He confidently used the language editor to send a bandit-like notice to the satellite of Azure Star. Chapter 423. You'll take your own risk. We're a powerful trade alliance in the universe. We are now officially notifying the Azure Star that the human race has no right to enjoy super energy substances. For the development of the universe, the Trade Alliance will take away all super energy substances from the Azure Star according to legal procedures. Otherwise, the Trade Alliance does not mind conducting orbital bombardment again until the human race chooses to compromise. The message was not only sent to the Human Space Observatory through the artificial satellite in the orbit of the Azure Star. It seems that in order to show its strength, the Trade Alliance also specially showed this message to the sightseeing fleets that followed other civilizations. There are many advanced civilizations in the sightseeing fleet. When they saw the message sent by the Trade Alliance, they knew that there was something interesting to watch. Interesting. According to the consistent style of the Trade Alliance, I'm afraid that this human planet will eventually become a slave planet. I heard that the Trade Alliance sells human female slaves in the trading market in our star zone. Just some two-legged sheep. The sightseeing fleet is unanimously optimistic about the Trade Alliance. Because they are all civilizations from the same star zone, and now they can see the survival of the fittest at a glance. The Trade Union has already blockaded the Azure Star, but the Azure Star has no way to deal with it. It seems that the Azure Star fleet may not be able to return. These sightseeing fleets composed of multiple civilizations are as confident as the Trade Union. At this moment, in the shipyard of the Wangxi Empire on the Azure Star, Lin Chen is gathering people to speed up the construction of the Imperial-class I-Star destroyer. He was the first to know that the two cities were reduced to ruins, and he was also the first to recall the information in his mind, but there was no information about the Trade Union at all. All the information pointed to a higher-level war in a few hundred years. So the Trade Union is just a small fry. However, even so, Lin Chen did not take it lightly. He immediately terminated all tasks in the shipyard and mobilized all to build this star destroyer. Now your task is to build this battleship with all your strength. I hope to complete the finishing work of this battleship within 3 to 5 days. Lin Chen stood on the podium and announced loudly. Yes. The scientific researchers in the audience shouted in unison, as if they were full of endless fighting spirit and the fighting spirit of revenge. Among them, there are many natives of Wangxi, and some people who were rescued from the world where the biochemical crisis broke out before. At this moment, they have the same goal and are united, because it can be said that the next task is about the fate of mankind. With the White Queen, an artificial intelligence that can be called a central computer, responsible for coordinating the work, the shipyard will undoubtedly be much faster in progress. Its powerful computing power began to operate, and soon the shipyard entered a scene of bustling work. Lin Chen looked at this Imperial-class I-type star destroyer for a long time. The aggressive shape is nothing but a symbol of force and power. It's time for this star destroyer to shine. I can't guarantee anything else, but Lin Chen can conclude that as long as this battleship is pulled out, even if it faces the siege of those battleships that blockade the Azure Star, if the Imperial-class I-type star destroyer wants to leave, no one can stop it. At the same time, humans all over the world are questioning their respective officials. Why didn't they fight back after being attacked? I've had enough. I want revenge. The city that once was turned into ruins is heartbreaking. Hatred has become a normal state. No one can remain indifferent when seeing their compatriots suffer unexpected events. At this time, satellites from all over the world suddenly sent back a group of messages. It was about the Trade Union. Everything was revealed. Super energy substances are nothing more than kyber crystals and fairy vines. It turns out that the spacecraft that blocked the Azure Star is a force called the Trade Union, and it seems to be a very powerful civilization in the starry sky. It turns out that the other party did this to plunder kyber crystals. Although they don't understand how this trade union knows that the Azure Star has kyber crystals, the bosses of various countries immediately cancelled all their schedules and set off for the World Congress. The bosses gathered at the World Congress. The atmosphere in the parliament was particularly solemn. Secretary General Laszkolola spoke in a deep voice. Now everyone knows, the blockaded spacecraft is a force called the Trade Union. There are about 500 warships of different sizes in the orbit of our Azure Star. The other party sent a message through our artificial satellite claiming to ask for kyber crystals, otherwise they will carry out orbital bombing. The leader of a certain country said, "I'm very curious, how did they know we have kyber crystals? Now is not the time to discuss this issue. What we should discuss now is what we should do." Everyone at the scene whispered. It has been more than a year since the day that kyber crystals were brought back. During this period, the number of spacecrafts of various countries has increased, and the power of Azure Star has long been different from the past. For various reasons, the two empires of Wangzhen and Jianmeng have more than 150 warships of various sizes, the Polar Empire also has more than 70 warships, and the joint fleet of small countries led by the Tribal Alliance has more than 100 warships. So after a discussion, everyone at the scene almost unanimously looked at these four major forces. If they want to fight, then fight. If they want to compromise, then compromise. Under the focus of attention, Nicholas said in a deep voice, "For the safety of Azure Star, give the Kyber crystal to the Trade Alliance first, and then ask for it from the Trade Alliance when our fleet comes back." William of the Japanese Alliance also agreed. Show weakness to the enemy first. After all, Azure Star can't contact the fleet now, which means it is in a passive position. Even if the fleet finds out that something is wrong with Azure Star, it will probably be a few months later. At the time, it is still unknown whether Azure Star can still exist. Since the fleet cannot be contacted to rescue, and it is in a passive position, choosing to compromise should be the safest way at present. Pussy said, "Bullshit, I will never compromise with any aliens. I know the true face of the trade union very well. No one can understand the trade union better than me, so I will never hand over the Kyber crystal." Everyone. Nicholas said dissatisfiedly. "Do you have a way to deal with the next orbital bombardment launched by the other party?" Pussy said confidently, "I believe everyone has heard of the Mothership of the God of Liberty. To be honest, the Mothership of the God of Liberty will be put into service in the next few days. At the time, it will rush out of this galaxy to summon the fleet back." William immediately said contemptuously, "With only one battleship, you'll go out to face the siege of hundreds of battleships. Are you sure you can rush out? Don't dream. Listen to me and show weakness to the enemy first." "Bullshit, maybe at the time the aliens will attack any place on the blue star more unscrupulously. Then what can you do? As long as the Mothership of the God of Liberty rushes out of this galaxy, it can recall all fleets." The scene was filled with noise and arguments, and no one could come up with a solution for a while. Everyone immediately noticed Jiang Minjiwan, who was silent. He was one of the most vocal people at the scene. Secretary General Lazkolola also noticed him. Seeing that he looked angry but not anxious, and showed an expression of being in control, he asked Jiang Minjiwan if he had any good ideas. The scene immediately became quiet. Jiang Minjiwan cleared his throat and said, "Why should we give our things to aliens? Once we give them, it means that we have chosen to be tolerant in the face of the evil aliens' difficulties. We, the Wangzhe Empire, would rather die standing than bow to aliens." Clattering, the information and notices about the Trade Alliance in his hand were thrown to the roof, and the papers fell down one after another. Jiang Minjiwan said in a deep voice, "The Trade Alliance has no right to travel freely in our own galaxy and act tyrannically. I have notified the Space Observatory and issued a notice to the Trade Alliance. We will not compromise on any treaty that harms the interests of Azure Star. After 10 days, all warships of the Trade Alliance are required to evacuate this galaxy, otherwise they will bear the consequences." Chapter 424 For our home. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. They couldn't help but look Jiang Minjiwan up and down with their eyes wide open. Who gave Jiang Minjiwan the courage? Jiang Minjiwan waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, there is a channel to Kepler in my empire. Have you forgotten it?" "Fuck, I actually forgot about it." People were overjoyed and excited. Since the signal of Azure Star was blocked, they could send a signal from Kepler. As long as the fleet of Azure Star comes back, even if they can't beat the Trade Alliance, they can also help Azure Star resolve this crisis. Someone asked, "Has the signal been sent?" Jiang Minjiwan said, "Not yet. We are speeding up the construction of the signal base station. It is expected to be completed in 5 days. After sending the signal and receiving the signal, we should be able to rush back in 10 days. When everyone heard this, how could this be possible? After 5 days, the message will be sent, which means the fleet will receive the message and rush back within the next 5 days. No, the time is too tight." Pussy said confidently. "Too slow. At this time, the Jianmeng Empire must take on the responsibility of being the global hegemon. If the Wangzhe Empire is short of people, we will immediately transfer people for free, and if it is short of materials, we will provide free materials." He did not forget to brag about the image of the Jianmeng Empire. Jiang Minjiwan said, "We have both people and materials. This is the fastest construction period." Everyone was helpless and could only wait for good news from the Wangzhe Empire. Soon, the Wangzi Empire sent a message to the fleet of the Trade Union through a satellite. It was required that the Trade Union must evacuate the galaxy after 10 days, otherwise it would bear the consequences. The news soon reached the Trade Union fleet in orbit of the Azure Star. In the command ship of the Trade Union fleet, the news from the humans of the Azure Star had just been received. The governor of trade sneered. Evacuate? Who should evacuate? What qualifications do they, the human race, have to point fingers at us? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. It was as if he was threatened by a group of primitive natives. An adjutant said, yes, the signal sent by the human race of Azure Star just now is indeed like this. It seems that they are not prepared to hand over the super energy material. The trade governor said, what a thing. When our trade union was rampant in the starry sky, the human race was just a group of lambs to be slaughtered. Governor, what should we do now? Should we conduct another orbital bombardment? The trade governor said with high spirits, don't pay attention to the threat of the human race. We will continue to blockade Azure Star. The day they are talking about should be one day when the satellite of Azure Star orbits Azure Star. Since the deadline is 10 days later, we will conduct another orbital bombardment at the time. This time we will defeat and scare the human race. Confidence. This is the blind confidence given by the trade union. Although the ground landing troops cannot enter Azure Star, if the signal of Azure Star is blocked, can't the fleet do whatever it wants to this human planet? The trade governor thought that everything he did was perfect, but he would never have thought that there was a channel connecting to another world in Azure Star. And at this moment, the life and death of the Azure Star all depended on this channel. Every day, a large number of scientific researchers were transferred to Kepler to build a signal base station. As time went by, 5 days later, with tens of thousands of people working day and night, a signal base station covering a vast area was officially built. From a distance, this new signal station was like a giant military fortress. At the first moment, the senior officials of various countries on the Azure Star rushed into Kepler from the Wangzi Empire and rushed to the signal base station to send signals to outer space, striving to get in touch with any fleet of the Azure Star in the shortest time. Squeak, the signal base station was contacting the fleet, but the snowflakes all over the screen proved that the fleets of the Azure Star had already run to who knows where in the depths of the starry sky. Finally, after a whole day of contact, the snowflakes on the screen began to gradually dissipate, and finally a figure appeared. Seeing this, William shouted excitedly, "That's Commander Ryan of our Japanese Tribal Alliance." Commander Ryan in the video said with a puzzled face, "Hey, what happened? Why is it so strange? Why are there communication requests from countries all over the world?" Everyone's face immediately straightened. At this time, Commander Ryan was still in a state of confusion. Because he actually saw from the video that many of the bigwigs of the Azure Star had gathered together, and coupled with the changes on his face, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. William made a long story short. "Ryan, can you contact other fleets now?" Commander Ryan said. "It should be no problem. 100 hours ago, I heard that the Wangzi fleet was racing with the Jianmeng fleet. The Polar fleet is now competing with us for the ownership of a primitive planet." William said, "I don't care what you are doing, contact all the fleets that can be contacted immediately and come back." Commander Ryan was puzzled. "Why?" "Immediately sent a report about the current situation of the Azure Star." After a while, Commander Ryan immediately understood the importance of the matter. It was just a primitive planet. If it was gone, it was gone. But if the home was gone, then everything was really gone. He saluted and repeatedly assured everyone that he would rush back to the altar of Azure Star within a week at the latest. The leaders of Azure Star breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, on a planet far away in the depths of the starry sky, the United Fleet of the Sun Never Sets Alliance, which was confronting the Polar Fleet, immediately withdrew from the competition. Just when the Polar Fleet thought that the other party was cowardly, a communication suddenly contacted the fleet. Commander Ryan solemnly recounted the experience of Azure Star, and produced various evidences, as well as images of 50 cities in ruins. The Jianmeng fleet immediately stopped fighting for the ownership of the primitive planet at this moment, and flew out of the atmosphere with the United Fleet of the Sun Never Sets Alliance. Time is running out, in another starry sky. The Wangzi fleet and the Jianmeng fleet were still racing, but after receiving a message, they immediately stopped racing. The fleets of various forces on Azure Star began to recall their warships scattered in the nearby starry sky. After more than a year of development, the warships of Azure Star have made a breakthrough in quantity. Take the Wangzi Empire as an example. On the basis of the third combined fleet, half of the first combined fleet will be added. As the warships continue to return to the team and continue to merge, the fleet group belonging to Azure Star is growing. No, it should be the power of mankind that is gradually getting stronger. Because, in the face of such a disaster, mankind have shown unprecedented unity. After more than a year, the Galaxy troops have been recuperated. When they heard that Azure Star was in trouble, the Federation immediately sent out all the forces of the Galaxy troopers. There is also Xinhua Star, a planet that cooperated with the Wangzi Empire to build spaceships. All the Millennium Falcons were taken out at once to form a very distinctive fleet. Because once Azure Star is finished, it won't be long before their future days will not be easy. At this moment, mankind will share the same hatred for our home. They all have a common wish, which is to go back and protect the home of mankind. Calculate the route and ensure that the jump to Azure Star is smooth. We will burn those aliens with the flames of hatred and blood. After 6 days, we will protect Azure Star and regain our honor. Chapter 425. Quickly reach the designated location. In the vast starry sky, warships kept shuttling back and forth. This was a fleet of about 800 warships of various sizes, a joint fleet formed by various forces. The entire fleet is making a space jump. They almost occupied a large space, which was extremely visually impactful. The next second, this fleet disappeared in the vast galaxy and entered the way to jump to the blue star. 5 days later. This was the deadline for the Human Trade Alliance to evacuate the galaxy, and it was also that day when the Freedom God mothership of the Jianmeng Empire was completed. A giant mothership about 4,300 meters long was built. This is a real air fortress, and anyone in front of it seems extremely small. Upon hearing the news, the high-level officials of the Jianmeng Empire rushed over immediately. Looking at this big guy, they all felt proud from the bottom of their hearts. Such a miracle is probably a miracle at the peak of human beings. It is a space-weapon platform, a super mothership that integrates planetary attack and defense. A certain senior executive laughed excitedly and said, "Good, great, with this Liberty God mothership, Azure Star will not only be able to fill a few more points of victory, but our Jianmeng Empire will be able to suppress the Wangxin Empire." Now it seems that the trade union is just here to give points to the Jianmeng Empire. Once this Liberty God mothership is launched, won't it be able to easily beat the garbage warships of the trade union? More importantly, the Jianmeng Empire can show its strength. This wave is not only stable, but also very happy. A senior executive gave a thumbs up without hesitation and smiled, "Stable. Now everything is ready, except for the fleet to come back. As long as the fleet comes back, the Liberty God mothership can give the trade union an internal and external attack." At this moment, in the Wangxi Empire, a brand new warship has been built. This is an Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer. Although its size is not as large as the Liberty God mothership of the Jianmeng Empire, this warship represents force and power. Its performance is far better than the Liberty God mothership. Hearing that the Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer was completed, Liang Shizong immediately brought a group of high-ranking officers of the 4th Legion to come and see their new battleship. The Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer presents an aggressive shape, and its streamlined design is very reasonable. Fuck, what a great spaceship. This shape is really cool, perfectly presenting a ruthless momentum towards war. This is a real battleship. The more people looked at it, the more surprised and excited they became. Some people also wondered, is this battleship really the 1,600-meter garbage spaceship? Lin Chen said, "Yes, the Imperial Class I-type Star Destroyer." A group of people were immediately shocked. The name of this battleship, combined with the shape of this battleship, gives people a sense of awe and fear. Lin Chen said again, "Okay, now this battleship will be officially put into service as long as the fleet of Azure Star returns." Everyone's faces were full of fighting spirit. Soldiers are not afraid of war, especially the war to defend their country. At present, both the Wangxi Empire and the Jianmeng Empire are waiting for the fleet to return, so as to achieve the effect of making the new warships a blockbuster. At the same time, on the planet Kepler, the World Parliament briefly moved to this safe planet, at least for now, to ensure that the leaders of these blue stars will not have any accidents. It won't be long today, and the fleet will rush back. It is also the last day for the Trade Alliance to evacuate, but the Trade Alliance did not leave and was preparing to launch orbital bombing again. In the Parliament, someone said worriedly, "A few years ago, we had a hard time resisting monsters, mimic aliens, and tentacle aliens. Although we won in the end, we also paid a heavy price. It's different now. Pussy said confidently. This time we must let the aliens understand that we humans are not easy to mess with, and it will be difficult to deal with if we get angry. Now that the mothership of the Free God has been in service and can be put into battle at any time, there is nothing to worry about. Jiang Minjian agreed with Pussy's point of view and said loudly, "Now contact all fleets in the name of each country. Any warship that hinders the safety of the Azure Star can be attacked without asking for permission." At this moment, everyone once again set their sights on the orbit of the Azure Star. As long as the fleet can come back, all problems will be solved. But they don't know that the trade union is about to prepare for orbital bombing of the Azure Star to force the Azure Star to compromise and hand over the super energy material. Confidence. This is not only the confidence of the trade union, but also that contempt of the races and civilizations deep in the starry sky. Looking back at the past, the human race was not even a vassal. This can also be regarded as a kind of suppression. The human race is a large race and is widely distributed. If we don't cut the grass and uproot it while it is weak, after the human race develops, will there be a way for the races to survive? It is precisely because of this that many races and civilizations in the starry sky will quickly raise their butcher knives towards the human planet once they find the human planet. At present, the trade union does not feel that its actions are cruel at all, but rather very kind. Only the trade union would do this. If it were any other civilization, they would have destroyed this human planet long ago. The blame lies with the slave-like humans who inhabit this planet. The blame lies with these humans who dare to possess super energy materials. At this moment, the trade governor stood in the command ship and looked at the Azure Star, with a barely perceptible sneer on his face. Restricting the trade union fleet to leave the system before today. Arrogant. Isn't there still no way now? It seems that the humans on this planet are about to die. The trade governor gave an order. Prepared for orbital bombardment. This time, Azure Star must be beaten into submission and compromise, so that those ignorant humans will crawl on the ground and beg for the right to live. Immediately afterwards, the 500 warships of the trade union received the order to attack Azure Star and immediately started the combat mode. The 500 warships extended black gun barrels, and energy was gathering at the muzzles. It would only take a few minutes to attack Azure Star. An adjutant said, "Governor, this round of attack is expected to begin in 5 minutes. The governor of trade nodded and said with a smile, "Soon, wait, it won't be long before Azure Star sends a message of surrender, because our trade alliance is an unreachable mountain for humans." His face was full of confidence and the smile was thick, but the next second the smile froze. Because a fleet suddenly jumped into this galaxy. They have about 800 large and small warships and are rushing here quickly. It can be concluded that this fleet is definitely not a sightseeing fleet of other civilized races. The governor of trade was surprised and said, "Could it be that the Azure Star fleet has returned? It's impossible. We have clearly blocked all external signals from Azure Star." At this moment, it was indeed the fleet of Azure Star and its affiliated planets that came. Just after the jump, it sailed towards Azure Star at full speed. Many people in the fleet have seen the current situation of Azure Star from the radar. There are many spaceships enveloping Azure Star, and there is another fleet of unknown origin. However, no one had any idea who the next enemy would be. The commanders in the fleet immediately issued an order. All units quickly reach the designated location. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.